Chapter 1, Reborn and Back, Good Fortune Descends. The cold interrogation room was filled with glaring incandescent lights that made it impossible to keep one's eyes open. Spit it out. Did you steal that piece of cake? Across the interrogation table, her stepmother Zhang Li's piercing voice sounded like fingernails scraping against a blackboard, painfully jolting Mary's already numb nerves. The policeman standing nearby didn't intervene. Instead, he stared at her with a sinister glint in his eyes, as if she were a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Mary was covered in wounds, her frail body curled up on the chair, with a trickle of blood leaking from the corner of her mouth. Her voice trembled as she protested, "It wasn't me. I really didn't. Dare you still try to talk your way out of it?" Zhang Liwa slammed her hand down on the table, leaping to her feet and pointing her finger at her nose as she shouted, "Ever since you were a kid, you've been sneaky and lazy. Now you've even stolen a piece of cake. You think you can just waltz into the police station and walk right out again? Dream on." Mary closed her eyes in despair. In her previous life, it was precisely because of that missing cake that her stepmother, in collusion with a police officer she'd already corrupted, had pinned the charge of theft on her, locking her up in the police station and torturing her to death. "Since you refuse to admit it, don't blame me for being blunt," the police officer sneered, his baton slowly rising in his hand. Despair surged over Mary like a tidal wave. She couldn't accept it, absolutely refused to accept it. A piercing scream cut through the sky, and Mary shot up from the bed, gasping for air in deep, labored breaths. Cold sweat soaked her pajamas, and her heart was pounding violently. This isn't a police station, it's her rental apartment from college days. Trembling, she raised her hand and looked at her pale, slender fingers free of any scars, and then glanced around at the familiar yet humble surroundings. She had been reborn back to the year right after graduation, when she'd just stepped into the world. Ding! The host's strong will to survive has been detected. The lucky system is binding. Binding successful. A crisp, pleasing mechanical sound rang in my mind. This system is designed to help the host turn their fate around and kickstart a life of smooth sailing and effortless success. The beginner's gift pack has been delivered. Please check your inbox. Mary was stunned. A system? Cheating? Before she had time to fully process this enormous surprise, a golden screen suddenly appeared in her mind, displaying a variety of rewards. 1 guaranteed lottery ticket, cooking master experience card, 24 hours, charm plus 10 aura. Lasts 1 week. The days of utter humiliation and silent endurance from her previous life flashed before her eyes like a slideshow. To please her stepmother, she washed clothes, cooked meals, and toiled like a servant, yielding step by step, only to receive ever-worsening abuse and ultimately meet a tragic death. In this life, she'll never again be a lamb left to be slaughtered. System, I want to get stronger. I want those who've bullied me to pay 100-fold, even 1,000-fold, the price they deserve, Mary said, her eyes blazing with determination. A hint of unprecedented determination and sharpness flashed through him. Host. Today's mission, go out and buy groceries, and savor the beauty of life. Mission reward, plus 50 in luck points, plus 1 random small gift package. Mary took a deep breath, pushed open the window, and the morning sunlight streamed onto her face, carrying a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. Since heaven has given her a second chance, and with the system's help, she's determined to live life boldly, freely, and sweetly. After a quick wash and grooming, Mary put on a clean dress. Though it wasn't a designer label, it made her skin look even whiter and highlighted her gentle demeanor infused with a quiet strength. She picked up her vegetable basket and pushed open the door, stepping outside. The weather today is exceptionally nice, even the air has a hint of sweetness. Mary arrived at the familiar vegetable market. Following the system's instructions, she first avoided a vegetable rack that was about to collapse, then stopped in front of an elderly grandmother's stall. "Young lady, would you like to buy something? These were just picked this morning. They're absolutely fresh," the old grandmother said with a warm smile, beckoning her over. Just as Mary was about to speak, a voice from the system suddenly echoed in her mind. "Congratulations, host. You've triggered the hidden quest, kind-hearted assistance. Help this elderly man sell all his vegetables for the day. Reward, fortune points plus 200, and the lucky aura effect is permanently activated." Mary glanced at the vegetables piled high and then looked into the old grandmother's expectant eyes, and her heart softened. With a gentle smile, she said, "Grandma, I'll take all of these vegetables." The old lady was taken aback for a moment, then suddenly overjoyed. "Oh my, this must cost quite a bit of money. Can you possibly eat it all by yourself?" "Don't worry, I've got plenty of friends, just share it around and it'll be gone in no time," Mary said as she skillfully pulled out her phone to scan the code and make the payment. Just then, a commotion broke out not far away. "Move aside. Quick, move aside. A VIP is coming." The crowd quickly scattered to make way as two black Maybachs slowly pulled up at the entrance of the vegetable market. The doors opened, and first out stepped a man dressed in a bespoke suit. His face was stern, and his eyebrows exuded an air of authority befitting a leader, none other than Gu Yanxi, the business tycoon who struck fear into the hearts of all who heard his name. Standing beside him, another man wore a perfectly tailored trench coat. Under his gold-rimmed glasses, his eyes were deep and penetrating, exuding an air of elegance yet irresistibly magnetic. This was none other than Hosen, the rising star of American politics. The two seemed to have met for a certain multinational project, but they never expected to end up here, visiting this old-fashioned vegetable market to gauge public sentiment. Gu Yanxi frowned slightly, clearly feeling somewhat uncomfortable with the surrounding noise. Hua Xinyang, meanwhile, was gazing around thoughtfully, as if deep in contemplation. Just then, a gentle voice cut through the noise and clearly reached the ears of the two bigwigs. "Grandma, take your time. I'll help you carry the groceries to the car." Mary was supporting the elderly grandmother, her face radiant with a bright smile. Sunlight streamed onto her profile, as if casting a halo of sacred light around her. In her clear, piercing eyes, there was no trace of worldly calculation, only pure kindness and warmth. Gu Yanxi's footsteps came to an abrupt halt, and for the first time, his usually icy eyes showed a flicker of emotion. He had seen countless socialites and noble ladies, yet he had never encountered such a pure and transparent gaze before. Hosen adjusted his glasses and a playful curve appeared at the corner of his lips. Interesting. The surrounding hubbub seemed to come to a sudden halt, and everyone's gaze was fixed on the girl carrying a vegetable basket, her smile sweet and gentle. Mary seemed to sense something unusual and turned her head, catching the intense, breathtaking gazes of two top-tier heavyweights right at that moment. She froze for a split second, instinctively touching her face. "Excuse me, is there something wrong?" Gu Yanxi hurried forward, his voice low and magnetic. "Miss, you're quite special." Hosen followed closely behind, gracefully bowing slightly. "Beautiful lady, would you honor me by having a cup of coffee with you?" Mary blinked, and the system's prompt tone blared frantically in her mind. "Congratulations, host. Your charm rating has skyrocketed. You've successfully caught the attention of two top-tier male celebrities. The side quest Flowers of Love Bloom has been unlocked. Reward: a mysterious grand prize package." Mary's heart skipped a beat. Could this really be the life of having all the luck in the world? Just casually lending a hand could lead to unexpectedly running into billionaires and political heavyweights? She smiled faintly, her tone gentle yet polite. "I'm sorry, I still have to go home and cook." But, she paused for a moment, glanced at the slightly disappointed expressions on both their faces, and then added, "If you don't mind, you can try the vegetables I just bought, they're really fresh." Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang exchanged a glance, and a hint of amusement flashed in each other's eyes. "Okay," the two replied in unison. Mary never expected that her first meal after being reborn would be shared with these two towering figures who could shake the world. What she hadn't expected even more was that this was just the beginning of her sweet, pampered, and extraordinary life. As for the stepmother who was still at home waiting to laugh at her misfortunes, she'd soon realize that Mary, once so easily manipulated by others, had completely transformed. Chapter 2, Simple Food and Quiet Undercurrents. In the cramped rented apartment, the originally dim light seemed to be disturbed by this sudden distinguished guest, becoming somewhat uneasy and agitated. Mary glanced at Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang, who stood in the doorway, both towering at a combined height of 2.8 meters, and her lips twitched slightly. These two were figures whose mere presence could make the global economy tremble, yet here they were, standing in her rented apartment, which was less than 50 square meters and still carried a faint musty odor. No matter how she looked at it, the scene felt utterly incongruous. It's a bit small, so just help yourselves and sit wherever you like," Mary said, pointing to the folding dining table that looked as if it could fall apart at any moment, her voice tinged with embarrassment. Gu Yanxi's brows twitched ever so slightly, and his gaze swept over the mottled walls and chipped furniture. A barely perceptible pang of tenderness flickered in the depths of his eyes. As the head of the prestigious Gu Group, how often had he ever set foot in a place like this? Yet for some reason, as he looked at the girl before him, a smile that was both slightly embarrassed yet still gentle, he found himself strangely touched, even sensing a peculiar warmth emanating from the dilapidated little room. Hosnian, by contrast, appeared much more composed. He gracefully pulled out a chair and even took the time to carefully wipe the tabletop with a handkerchief. It's okay. Experiencing the most authentic life is a rare and delightful pleasure in itself. Mary breathed a sigh of relief and turned around, walking into the kitchen, which was hardly much bigger than a closet. Ding! Host detected facing a culinary challenge. The Master Chef Experience card has been activated automatically. Current status: full-level Little Chef of China mode. As soon as the system's voice echoed in her mind, Mary felt a strange sensation well up inside her. Despite having absolutely no knowledge of cooking oils, salt, soy sauce, or vinegar, she suddenly found herself flooded with countless culinary techniques from top-notch recipes. The shreds must be as fine as hair, and the cubes must be square and evenly sized. Mary's movements were as smooth and graceful as flowing water. The kitchen knife in her hands seemed to come alive, producing a delightful rhythm of tuck-tuck-tuck. The once unremarkable green vegetables and radishes, under her skilled hands, appeared to be imbued with soul. The vibrant green leaves and bright orange carrots were arranged so exquisitely that they resembled works of art. Stir-fried seasonal vegetables, braised lion's head meatballs, jade and white jade soup. In just half an hour, 4 dishes and a soup were steaming hot on the simple folding table. As the rich aroma wafted out, Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang simultaneously raised their heads, their eyes flashing with a hint of astonishment. This flavor, even a Michelin 3-star chef would probably find it hard to match. Mary came out carrying the last dish, wiped the light sweat from her forehead, and asked with a hint of nervousness, my cooking isn't very good, so please don't be too critical, just make do with it. Make do? Gu Yanxi glanced at the braised lion's head, a dish that was rich in color, aroma, and flavor, and his throat muscles twitched slightly. He picked up his chopsticks, plucked a piece, and put it into his mouth. It melts in your mouth, with tender and juicy meat. The sauce is perfectly balanced to perfection, richly fragrant yet subtly sweet, perfectly stimulating your taste buds. Delicious. Gu Yanxi gave a rare high praise, his voice low and earnest. Hosnian wasn't one to back down either. After taking a bite of the simply stir-fried vegetables, a hint of astonishment flashed in his eyes. Miss Mary, your cooking, it's simply breathtaking. If I'm not mistaken, the heat control for this dish is nothing short of perfect. Probably even many chefs at 5-star hotels would feel ashamed by comparison. Mary felt a bit embarrassed by the praise and her cheeks turned slightly red. Really? I just did it casually. Humility is a virtue, but Miss Mary, your talent shouldn't be left to languish. Hosen's gaze burned intensely as he looked at her, his admiration plainly visible in his eyes. In the time it took to finish a meal, the initially somewhat awkward atmosphere instantly became much more harmonious. The two of them savored the delicious food as they chatted away. He served Mary food from time to time. This lion's head is just your style, help yourself to more, Gu Yanxi said as he picked up the biggest lion's head and placed it into Mary's bowl, his movements both commanding and subtly tender. Miss Mary, try this soup. It's said to be very good for the skin, Hosnian said as he carefully ladled a bowl of soup and gently pushed it toward her. Mary was buried in her work, feeling like a tiny Chinese cabbage squeezed between 2 massive mountains. Sweet as it may be, the pressure was immense. After the meal, Mary was just about to clear away the bowls and chopsticks to wash them when Gu Yanxi suddenly stood up. I'll do it. Hosen also stood up at the same time and gracefully adjusted his cuffs. General Gu handles countless tasks every day. Let me take care of this small matter. I often do housework at home, and I'm quite skilled at it. Mr. Hua is a prominent political figure and should focus his energy on governing the country. It's more appropriate for me, Gu Yanxi, to handle such menial tasks as washing dishes, Gu Yanxi said, refusing to budge an inch, his gaze cold and piercing as he fixed it on Hua Xinyang. The two stood in the doorway of the tiny kitchen, radiating an intense presence, so much so that the air seemed to freeze completely. Mary stared in astonishment at the scene. These were business tycoons and political heavyweights. Now they were actually locked in a tense standoff, vying to wash the dishes? Actually, I can handle it myself. Mary raised her hand timidly. No way, the two said in unison, then exchanged glares with each other. In the end, Mary resigned herself to stepping aside, watching as the two big shots rolled up their expensive sleeves and launched into a dishwashing showdown right in front of her tiny sink. Gu Yanxi's movements were crisp and efficient, clearly the result of rigorous training, and he washed quickly yet thoroughly. In contrast, Hua Xinyang appeared elegant and composed. Every single one of her gestures seemed like part of some kind of ritual. Looking at the two of them, their serious profiles side by side, Mary felt a warmth well up inside her, a warmth she'd never experienced before. At this very time in her previous life, she'd been doing backbreaking housework at her stepmother's home, eating leftover scraps and cold leftovers, and enduring endless insults and scoldings. And now, she's being cherished and protected in someone's hands. Just at this moment, when the warmth was almost overflowing, a shrill cell phone ring suddenly sounded, shattering the beautiful atmosphere. Mary pulled out her phone, and when she saw the name flashing on the screen, her face instantly turned pale. Zhang Lihua, that nightmarish stepmother. In a past life, this phone call was often a death warrant, a harbinger of a new round of abuse. Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang both simultaneously paused their actions and turned their heads to look at Mary. They keenly sensed the shift in her emotions. Her gaze, which had just moments ago been gentle as water, now carried a hint of coldness. "What's wrong? Don't you want to take it?" Gu Yanxi wiped his hands, walked over to Mary, and spoke in a low voice. Hosnian also came over, his eyes filled with concern. "If it's trouble, we can help you deal with it." Mary took a deep breath, her fingers gripping her phone tightly. She knew that running away wouldn't solve the problem. In this life, she was no longer the little sheep left to be slaughtered at others' mercy. She pressed the answer button, and her voice was so calm that even she was surprised. "Hello, Mom." Zhang Lihua's sharp, cutting voice came through the phone, and even Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyan could faintly hear it over the receiver. "You little brat, where have you been? Today's your cousin's birthday, and I asked you to prepare the feast. Where are the dishes? Where's everyone? Don't tell me you're planning to slack off again and go shopping instead. Believe it or not, I'll have the police come and drag you back here to lock you up." That familiar threat and insult felt like a slap, striking Mary's heart hard. Gu Yanxi's brows instantly furrowed into a shape, and a hint of coldness flashed in his eyes. Hua Xinyang narrowed his eyes slightly, his fingers lightly tapping the tabletop, clearly suppressing his anger as well. Mary's knuckles turned pale as she held her phone, yet a cold smirk slowly curled at the corners of her lips. "Mom, I'm eating out. As for cousin's birthday party, I'm afraid I'll have to excuse myself. Are you daring enough?" Zhang Lihua exploded with fury on the other end of the phone. "You ungrateful wretch. After I've raised you all this way, is this how you repay me? Do you really think I won't have Officer Li come and arrest you right this minute?" When Officer Li was mentioned, Mary's body involuntarily shivered. He had been the accomplice who tortured her to death in her previous life. But the next second, she felt a warm, large hand gently rest on the back of her hand. The warmth radiating from Gu Yanxi's broad palm instantly chased away the chill in her heart. Mary took a deep breath, her voice turning cold and firm. "Mom, I was just too foolish before, letting you all bully me. But starting today, your good days are over." After finishing speaking, she hung up the phone directly and swiped her finger to block the caller. Ding! The host delivers a powerful counterattack, gaining plus 500 luck points. A new skill has been unlocked. Crisis alert. The system's voice echoed in her mind, but Mary had no time to pay attention to it at the moment. She raised her head and looked at the two senior figures standing before her, their expressions solemn. She said softly, "That's my stepmother. In a past life, she colluded with the police to send me to prison and tortured me to death." A fierce blaze of anger instantly ignited in Gu Yanxi's eyes, and his voice dropped to a deep rumble that seemed to come straight from hell. "Who gave her the audacity?" Hosnian let out a cold laugh and pulled out his phone. "It seems I'll have to have a friendly chat with my colleagues back home. Someone actually dared to lay a hand on my friend." Watching the two of them fiercely defend each other, Mary's once impervious inner defense finally crumbled completely, and her eyes began to moisten slightly. In this lifetime, she was no longer fighting alone. And this phone call was just the first step in her attempt to collect the debt from her stepmother. Outside the window, the setting sun is sinking, and the evening glow is as red as blood. A storm of revenge and redemption is quietly brewing. Chapter 3, Thunderous Measures and the Mansion's New Abode. The busy tone that followed the phone hang-up sounded especially jarring in the quiet rental apartment. Mary took a deep breath. The vulnerability in her eyes vanished in an instant, replaced by a determination she'd never felt before. She raised her head and looked at the two men standing before her, each with a different expression yet equally filled with concern, and felt a warm surge of emotion well up inside her. "Don't be afraid, we're here with you." Gu Yanxi's voice was deep and magnetic, exuding an unquestionable air of authority. He took out his phone, his slender fingers swiftly tapping a few times on the screen before dialing a number. "I'm Gu Yanxi." Immediately look into a woman named Zhang Lihua and the family-owned business behind her. "I want their funding chain to collapse within 3 hours, and all their partners to terminate their contracts." His tone was as calm as if he were discussing today's weather, but it carried an icy chill that sent shivers down your spine. Hanging up the phone, He turned his head back to Mary, his gaze instantly softening. From now on, no one will ever be able to pressure you with money again. Hosnian wasn't about to back down either. He pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses and a sly smile curled at the corner of his lips. Since this involves police abuse of power, it's no longer just a domestic matter. I'll get in touch with the judicial authorities back home right away, Officer Lee. I'm afraid he's going to have to pay the price for what he's done. As he spoke, he had already begun engaging in friendly communication with his colleagues across the ocean in fluent English. His remarks were sharp and every word was carefully chosen. In just 10 minutes, Mary's phone vibrated. She picked it up and took a look. It was actually a message popping up in the family group chat. My usually arrogant cousin was frantically tagging her in the group chat. Mary, what have you done? The bank suddenly stopped our family's loan. Even our partners have all bailed. Mom's gone completely crazy. Please come home fast. Mary let out a cold laugh, immediately put her phone on silent, and tossed it aside. Is this why the wicked receive swift retribution? It's only been 10 minutes. Yet the stepmother's house has already descended into complete chaos. Is everything taken care of? Gu Yanxi put away his phone and casually walked over to Mary, gently adjusting the stray strands of hair near her ear. The evidence of Officer Lee's disciplinary violation has been found. What awaits him is strict legal punishment, Ho Xinyan said with a smile as he closed his phone. Miss Mary, now you can rest easy. Peace of mind? Mary looked at the small, dimly lit rented room, her heart filled with a complex mix of emotions. Although the villain had finally been punished, this place was still where she'd once struggled desperately just to survive, a space brimming with oppressive memories. This place is too small. It's not suitable for you. Gu Yanxi glanced around, his brow slightly furrowed. After all, he was the head of the Gu family, a man of great power and influence. How can you possibly tolerate letting the person at your heart's core live in a place like this? I think so too. Ho Xinyan nodded in agreement. Miss Mary deserves the very best. The two exchanged a glance, and once again, a subtle aura of rivalry filled the air. I own a seaside villa with beautiful views and a top-notch security system, Gu Yanxi said first. Although Linhai is nice, it's windy. I have a top-floor duplex apartment in the city center, convenient transportation and an elegant environment. Ho Xinyan retorted defiantly. Mary saw the two of them about to start arguing again over her, so she quickly waved her hand and said, there's no need to go through all that trouble. I'm used to living here. No way, the two of them said in unison once again. Gu Yanxi griped Mary's hand in a domineering way. You're the treasure we hold dear in our palms. How could you possibly live in a place like this? There's no room for discussion on this matter. Hosnian gently advised. Miss Mary, changing your surroundings is also a way to change your mood. Just think of it as doing it for our peace of mind, okay? Looking into the two people's sincere eyes, Mary's heart melted like a puddle of water. She really didn't want to go back to that old environment filled with nightmares anymore. Then I'll just listen to you, Mary said softly, her cheeks slightly flushed. All right, then let's head to my villa. Gu Yanxi's lips curved upward slightly, revealing a hint of victorious smile. Going to my duplex is much more convenient, Hosen immediately retorted. The villa has a spacious interior. The duplex is close to the city center. Mary, just as the two were locked in a heated argument, Gu Yanxi's assistant and Hua Xinyang's secretary both called almost simultaneously. Mr. Gu, the Linhai villa has been thoroughly cleaned, and the housekeeping team is on standby at all times. Mr. Hua, the penthouse duplex has been furnished. Would you like to take a look at the photos? The two of them simultaneously held down the phone and looked at Mary again. Mary sighed helplessly, but in her mind, the system's voice rang out cheerfully. Congratulations, host. 2 divine men are vying for your attention. Gain 1,000 in fortune points. Reward 1, top-tier interior design blueprint. Mary's eyes lit up, and a stunningly beautiful interior design scheme instantly appeared in her mind. Actually, I have an idea. Mary led the two of them to the table and quickly sketched something on the paper with a pen. I don't want a villa, nor do I want a duplex. I'm looking for a place with a big yard and plenty of sunshine. According to, I'll decorate it using my own design. She painted a single-family house with French flair, its courtyard lush with flowers and featuring a spacious living room with floor-to-ceiling windows that let sunlight stream in unobstructed. Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang glanced at the blueprint, and a hint of admiration flashed simultaneously in their eyes. This design is absolutely stunning, almost like a castle straight out of a fairy tale. That's it, Gu Yanxi said decisively. I own a prime plot of land in the city center, a spot with a serene and tranquil environment, perfect for building this. I'll provide the land, and I'll take charge of the Hosnian immediately chimed in. I have plenty of friends in the construction industry, rest assured. Miss Mary will be completely satisfied. No need to argue, let's renovate together. Gu Yanxi made a rare concession, yet his tone remained commanding. Hosen raised an eyebrow and smiled. That's exactly what I had in mind. In the days that followed, Mary's life seemed to have taken off like a rocket, going smoothly and effortlessly to an extreme degree. Gu Yanxi mobilized the power of the conglomerate and bought that plot of land on the same day. He then assembled the finest construction crew and ordered them to work around the clock, without any breaks. Hua Xinyang personally oversaw the project, taking charge of every single detail, from material selection to color coordination. Meanwhile, Mary was under house arrest by two powerful figures in Gu Yanxi's private apartment, leading a life as a piggish girl who had everything handed to her, clothes, food, and every other comfort imaginable. Every morning, Gu Yanxi personally brings a delicious breakfast, while Hua Xinyang brings the latest fashion magazines and jewelry. Miss Mary, try on this necklace, I think it really suits you. This pizza is made by a Michelin 3-star chef, give it a try. Mary felt as if she were about to be overwhelmed by this sudden happiness. This feeling of being held in someone's tender palm was something she hadn't even dared to imagine in her previous life. 3 days later, the new home was completed. When Mary stood in front of the small building that looked like a fairy tale castle, she was stunned. It was even more beautiful than she'd imagined. The white walls, the green vines, every corner of the courtyard was lush with her favorite roses and lilies. As she pushed open the gate, sunlight streamed into the living room through enormous floor-to-ceiling windows, filling the air with a delicate floral fragrance. Do you like it? Gu Yanxi asked softly, standing behind her. I love it so much. Mary's eyes were slightly reddened, and her voice was a bit choked with emotion. From now on, this place will be your home, Hosen said with a smile, handing her a golden key. And it'll also be our home. Ding. Congratulations, host. Welcome to a top-tier mansion and a sweet, pampered new life. Mission reward, fortune points plus 5,000. Unlock a new skill, lucky aura, extended range. Mary took the key and felt the warmth in the palm of her hand. She knew that, from today onward, her life had been completely transformed. She's no longer that poor, bullied little girl. She's now the queen adored by two top-tier heartthrobs. Just at this heartwarming moment, almost overflowing with warmth, Mary's phone vibrated once again. She picked it up and saw, it was a text message from her stepmother, Zhang Liwa. You little brat. Get your butt back here right now. Our family's bankrupt. Your cousin's been arrested. It's all because of you. May you die a horrible death. Looking at the vicious curse, Mary let out a cold laugh and directly pressed the delete key. What's wrong? Gu Yanxi noticed her unusual behavior. It's okay. Mary turned around, burrowing into Gu Yanxi's arms, then glanced back at Hua Xinyang with a face brimming with a happy smile. There are still some flies buzzing around, but that's fine, soon they'll all be gone for good. Gu Yanxi patted her back and said in a calm tone, I've already had someone thoroughly investigate their family. They've been caught red-handed, evading taxes and bribing officials. The evidence is conclusive. Tomorrow, they'll be taken into custody for investigation. Hosnian added, Officer Lee has also been suspended from duty and is under investigation. Miss Mary, your revenge is complete. Mary closed her eyes and felt an unprecedented sense of ease. The nightmare from a past life has finally come to an end at this very moment. And her sweet, pampered, and seemingly effortless life has only just begun. She took the hands of the two bigwigs and walked into this sun-drenched castle. Are you hungry? I'll cook you something to eat. I'll wash the dishes. I'll wipe the table. Sunlight spilled onto the three figures, casting long shadows that seemed like a breathtakingly beautiful painting. Chapter 4, Cohabitation Hell and Top Secret Files. The lingering glow of the setting sun streamed through the enormous floor-to-ceiling windows, bathing the living room, resembling a fairy tale castle, in a warm golden hue. However, beneath this warm atmosphere, undercurrents are quietly brewing. Mary stood in the second-floor hallway, staring at the two adjacent guest rooms ahead of her, caught in deep inner turmoil. Mr. Gu, Mr. Hua, there are only 2 guest rooms. Mary turned around, facing the 2 powerfully commanding men, and said somewhat hesitantly, how about we settle it with a game of rock paper scissors to decide who gets which room? No need. Gu Yanxi wore a black, handmade suit with his sleeves rolled up, revealing his smoothly defined forearms. He stepped forward and approached the door of the guest room on the left, the one with the best view, and reached out to grasp the doorknob. His tone left no room for argument. This room is closest to your bedroom and has the highest security level. I'll be staying here. General Gu is being a bit too overbearing, isn't he? Hosu slowly and deliberately took off his gold-rimmed glasses, a gentle yet subtly sharp smile curling at the corners of his lips. He walked to the door of the room on the right, gently pushed it open, and quickly scanned the layout of the interior. This room isn't bad either, great natural light, and it just happens to offer a clear view of the main entrance. For Miss Mary's safety, I feel utterly responsible. The two stared at each other across the hallway, and it felt as though invisible sparks were crackling in the air. Mary watched the confrontational scene, her lips twitching slightly. After all, this was her home. Why did it feel as though two powerful figures had forcibly requisitioned it? Actually, there's still a sofa in the living room downstairs, Mary suggested softly. Sofas are bad for spinal health. Gu Yanxi frowned and firmly refused. And besides, the living room feels chilly at night, making it easy to catch a cold, Hosen added gracefully. The two of them again said in unison, I'll stay in the guest room. Just as it looked like the two were about to launch into another round of commercial bickering over accommodation rights, Mary was about to intervene once more when, suddenly, a hurried alert tone from the system rang in her mind. Ding! Emergency mission issued. The long-buried truth. Task description. The previous host was framed and imprisoned. The key evidence, the missing persons file and the forged medical report, was not completely destroyed. The system has detected a faint signal within the current scene. Task reward. Unlock the passive skill, Absolute Defense, plus 10,000 luck. Mary paused for a moment. Key evidence? Right nearby? She raised her head, her gaze flickering between Gu Yanxi and Huaxinyan. Gu Yanxi had nothing in his hands, only the mobile phone he'd brought along, but Huaxinyan, he was holding a black briefcase in his hand. It was a leather briefcase that looked perfectly ordinary, yet in Mary's eyes at that moment, it exuded a strangely captivating allure. Mr. Hua, Mary's voice trembled slightly as she pointed to the briefcase. What's inside that bag? Hosen turned his head to look at Mary upon hearing this, his gaze instantly softening. Oh, these are some disciplinary records about Officer Lee that my assistant put together before we came today. What's the matter, Miss Mary? Can you show it to me? Gu Yanxi and Huaxinyan both simultaneously noticed the unusual shift in Mary's mood. She was no longer the confused, troubled woman she'd been just moments ago. Instead, her face was now filled with seriousness and tension, and even her eyes seemed slightly reddened. Gu Yanxi immediately gave up trying to the room and strode over to Mary. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Hosnian's expression instantly turned serious, and he quickly stepped forward, placing the briefcase on the coffee table in the living room. Is there something in these documents that's bothering you? I'll take care of it right away. No, don't move. Mary quickly intervened. She took a deep breath, walked over to the coffee table, and placed both hands on the black briefcase. The system's voice was frantically flashing through her mind. Signal source locked. Target file. Copy of the Mary abuse case file. Location. Third page of the briefcase's inner compartment. Mary's fingers, trembling slightly, zipped open the zipper. Gu Yanxi and Huaxinyan exchanged a glance, each reading solemnity in the other's eyes. They had never seen Mary lose her composure like this before. The briefcase was opened, revealing a thick stack of documents inside. Relying on the systematic guidance, Mary quickly began searching. Her fingers skimmed across the cold sheets of paper, and her heart was beating rapidly. Finally, she pulled out an old, yellowed file from the recesses. On the cover of the file, several large characters boldly read, Explanation of non-filing in the case of abuse leading to disability involving Mary, an orphan. In the signature box below, besides that damn Officer Lee, there was actually the guardian's signature of my stepmother, Zhang Liwa. What is this? Gu Yanxi leaned in to take a closer look, his brows instantly furrowing tightly, and the air pressure around him dropped to an eerily low level. Hosnian glanced at it briefly, his expression turning extremely grim. This is an old case file? Why would it be in Officer Lee's disciplinary record? Mary's fingers clenched tightly around the document, her knuckles turning pale. Memories from a past life surged forth like a tidal wave. The rainy night when her broken ribs had been inflicted upon her, the desperate cries for help that went unanswered, and the appeal letter that had been returned by the police under the pretext of being a domestic dispute. It turns out it wasn't that no one was paying attention, rather, someone had colluded to brutally suppress her pain. This is the evidence they used to frame me. Mary's voice was hoarse, tinged with a chill that seemed to have returned from the depths of hell. In my previous life, it was precisely this refusal to file a case document that they used to prove I was mentally unstable and send me off to that hellish prison. Gu Yanxi's eyes instantly turned furious. He snatched the document from her hand in one swift motion, and with a gentle pinch of his slender fingers, the tough paper instantly crumbled into dust. What audacity! Gu Yanxi's voice was as cold as ice. Abusing their power, forging case files, treating human lives as mere weeds. These people deserve to die. Although Hua Xinyang didn't make the same intense gestures as Gu Yanxi, the fury in his eyes was no less scorching. He took out his phone and dialed an encrypted number directly. I'm Hosnian. Immediately activate the highest level investigation order. I want a retrial of the abuse case from 5 years ago. All individuals involved, regardless of their rank, must be suspended from duty pending the investigation. Yes, immediately, right now. Hanging up the phone, Hosnian turned around and looked at Mary, whose face was streaked with tears yet her eyes were firm and resolute. A wave of deep self-reproach and heartfelt sympathy surged through his heart. He stepped forward and gently took Mary's hand. I'm sorry, Miss Mary. It's us who are late. Sorry for making you suffer all these years. Gu Yanxi also calmed the hostility that had been simmering within him. With his large hand, he gently cupped Mary's head and softly rubbed it. Don't be afraid. Now that we've found the evidence, let them spend the rest of their lives atoning for their crimes. The law will deliver the fairest possible judgment to them, and as for me, I'll make sure they have a comfortable time even behind bars. Mary felt the warmth radiating from the palm of her hand, and finally, tears welled up and slipped down her cheeks. In her previous life, this evidence was the final straw that broke her back, yet in this life, it has become a pass to send her enemy straight to hell. Thank you, Mary said, her voice trembling with emotion. Just then, the system's voice sounded again. Ding! Mission complete. The key evidence has been found. The host's path to revenge has entered a new chapter. Reward issued. The absolute defense skill has been activated. Effect: the host will be blessed with exceptionally high luck and will rarely suffer physical or mental harm. Extra reward: your luck value soars. Unlock the advanced lucky aura. A wave of warmth instantly swept through Mary's entire body, as if an invisible protective shield had enveloped her. She felt her body lighter than ever before. Even the tears at the corners of her eyes seemed crystal clear and glistening. All right, stop crying, Gu Yanxi said, pulling out a pure white handkerchief and awkwardly yet gently wiping away her tears. Crying over that kind of trash, it's just not worth it. Hosnian also smiled as he handed over a cup of warm water. That's right, Miss Mary. From today onward, this house is allowed to hold only laughter, not a single tear. Mary took the cup of water and looked at the two men before her, men who had gone to great lengths for her yet were so tender and caring. The gloom in her heart finally began to lift. She wiped away her tears and smiled. Okay, no more crying. She raised her head, her gaze firm. But before that, I have one more question. What's the problem? Both of them asked at the same time. Mary pointed to the two guest rooms and a sly smile curled at the corner of her lips. Since you're all so worried about my safety, who's going to sleep on the living room sofa? Gu Yanxi said. Hosnian. The air froze again. Gu Yanxi was the first to react, boldly putting his arm around Mary's shoulder. I'm the investor. I'm staying in the master bedroom. Hosen pushed up his glasses and countered elegantly. I'm a representative from the political sphere. I have security needs, and I'm staying in the room next to the master bedroom. I am her. Seeing the two of them instantly switch back to jealousy and bickering mode, Mary helplessly rubbed her forehead. Oh well, it looks like tonight is bound to be a sleepless night after all. Still, it feels really nice to be so eagerly and passionately protected by others. Chapter 5. Trial Storm and Echoes from Prison. At the entrance of the Municipal Intermediate People's Court, countless camera flashes twinkled like stars, and reporters armed with long and short lenses were almost pushing the gates to their breaking point. Today's is a special court hearing live stream. In the defendant's seat sits none other than Zhang Lihua, once a dazzling socialite in our city, and right next to her, the once imposing Officer Li. And in the plaintiff's seat, there was only one figure sitting quietly, Mary. She wore a simple, elegant white dress with long hair cascading over her shoulders. Her face was unadorned, yet she was breathtakingly beautiful. To her left stood Gu Yanxi, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit and sporting dark sunglasses that obscured his features. His entire presence exuded an icy aura that kept others at bay. To her right stood Hua Xinyan, clad in a crisp, dark gray suit. Behind his gold-rimmed glasses, his eyes gleamed sharp as an eagle's, constantly on high alert, scanning every corner of the room. With this kind of show of force, it doesn't look like they're here to file a lawsuit at all. It's as if they're here to take over the entire courtroom. Good heavens, is that Gu Yanxi, the head of the Gu Group? He actually came here himself. And that one, it seems to be Hosinian, a rising political star who just returned from abroad. Why are they all crowding around that girl? In the gallery, Those relatives and neighbors who had once treated Mary with cold indifference, and even joined her stepmother in mocking her, were now gaping in astonishment. Who could have imagined that the illegitimate daughter whom Zhang Lihua had labeled a madwoman and an ungrateful wretch would turn out to have such an illustrious background? Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was solemn and reverent. As the gavel came down, the presiding judge declared the trial open. Zhang Lihua and Officer Li were brought in. In just a few short days, the two had already lost their former arrogance. Zhang Lihua's hair was a mess, and her heavy makeup had smudged, revealing the grim wrinkles beneath. Officer Li, meanwhile, hung his head dejectedly, his wrists bruised where the handcuffs had dug in. When Zhang Lihua saw Mary sitting safely and unharmed in the plaintiff's seat, her eyes instantly turned red. She looked like a rabid she-wolf, struggling to lunge forward. It's you, you little bitch. Who's behind this? May you die a horrible death. I'm your own mother. How dare you send me to jail? Silence. The defendant, please remain silent. The court bailiff immediately stepped forward and restrained Zhang Lihua. She roared in defiance, her spittle flying everywhere. Mary sat quietly there, listening to the familiar insults, yet her heart remained utterly undisturbed. In her previous life, these very voices had been her worst nightmare, but in this life, they were nothing more than the final, desperate struggles of a petty clown on its way out. Gu Yanxi let out a cold snort, took off his sunglasses, and fixed Zhang Lihua with a gaze as sharp as a blade. Just one glance, yet the overwhelming authority of someone in a position of power sent a shiver through Zhang Lihua's entire body, leaving her words abruptly stuck in her throat. Continue. Hosen spoke softly, his voice not loud but carrying an unquestionable authority. Several prosecutors behind him immediately stepped forward and presented stacks of irrefutable evidence, mountains of documents, onto the table. The defendant, Zhang Lihua, is suspected of long-term abuse, illegal detention, and forgery of documents. The defendant, Li Mumu, is suspected of abusing his official authority, bending the law for personal gain, and accepting bribes. As each charge was read aloud, the crowd in the gallery let out a series of gasps. It turns out that this seemingly pitiful stepmother was secretly committing so many heartless and monstrous acts against Mary. It turns out that Officer Li was actually using his connections to treat human lives as mere trifles. No, that's not how it is. I've been wrongly accused. I was just trying to educate my child. Zhang Lihua collapsed onto the ground, crying out at the top of her lungs, Mary, Mary, please save me. I'm your mom. Quick. Tell the judge that I had no idea. Tell them I'm innocent. She began to sob and plead for mercy. Her appearance was so grotesque that there wasn't a trace left of the noble stepmother she once was. Mary slowly stood up and walked to the witness stand. She didn't look at Zhang Lihua. Instead, she turned toward the livestream camera. In those clear, piercing eyes, countless viewers' gazes were reflected. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen. Mary's voice, amplified through the microphone, rang clearly throughout the courtroom, and also reached across the internet. This is the nightmare of my past life, and also the rebirth of this life. I ask for neither pity nor sympathy, only justice. She took out the yellowed copy of the case file, along with the injury assessment report automatically generated by the system, and laid them out one by one. This record here documents my broken ribs, my burned skin, and the fear of being locked in a basement. And today, I'm going to hand these nightmares right back to them, by my own two hands. Her voice was gentle, yet every word struck deep into the heart. I don't have a mother like you. From the moment you teamed up with the police to send me to hell, our bond was completely severed. No, Zhang Lihua screamed in despair, collapsing onto the ground in utter breakdown as bailiffs forcibly dragged her away. Finally, the presiding judge delivered the verdict in court. The defendant, Zhang Lihua, was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment after cumulative sentencing for multiple crimes. Defendant Li Mumu, sentenced to 20 years of imprisonment, deprived of political rights for life. Boom! The whole venue erupted in uproar. 15 years, 20 years, for Zhang Lihua, who is already over 50. This undoubtedly means spending the rest of her life imprisoned in a dark and hopeless dungeon. No, no, please, I don't want to go to jail. I've got money, I can pay. Mary, please save me. General Gu, Mr. Hua, I'm begging you. As Zhang Lihua was being dragged away, she was still frantically kowtowing to Mary and the two big bosses. But all she received in return were cold, turned backs. After the trial concluded, Mary left the courthouse calmly, flanked by Gu Yanxi and Hua Shunian. And on the other end of the city, there's the city's first women's prison. Zhang Lihua and Officer Li were taken separately into their respective detention cells. As soon as Zhang Lihua stepped inside, she was hit by a pungent, musty smell. This wasn't a place for humans to live at all. It was even dirtier than a pigsty. Hey, the new guy? Several female inmates, big and burly, with tattoos covering their arms, closed in around her, sizing her up with unfriendly stares. Here you used to be a rich man? You've bullied plenty of people, haven't you? One of the female prison bosses, a woman with a face full of coarse features, smirked coldly as she pinched Zhang Li's well-maintained but now deathly pale face. Just as it happens, we here hate sadists the most. No. Do you know who I am? I know important people. Plop. A loud slap cut short her ranting. Now that you're here, you're just a number. Cut the crap, get on your knees. Meanwhile, the men's detention ward next door. As soon as Officer Lee stepped inside, he was immediately surrounded in the corner by several burly men. Here you used to be a cop? Or maybe even a scumbag who abused your power? A man with a face scarred all over was idly twirling a rusty iron rod in his hand, his eyes cold and menacing. That's exactly the kind of leather-clad scum our brothers hate the most. Don't come any closer. I'm innocent. Wronged? Once you're in here, you'll no longer be wronged. Mary didn't know any of this, or rather, she didn't care. At this moment, she was sitting in the back seat of Gu Yanxi's private car, holding a cup of hot cocoa that Hua Xingyang had handed her. Are you tired? Gu Yanxi glanced at her slightly weary profile and gently began massaging her temples for her. Not tired at all. Mary leaned against his shoulder, a contented smile curling her lips. I'm actually glad I get to watch them go straight to hell. Hosen sat across from her, smiling as he watched the scene unfold, his eyes filled with tender affection. Miss Mary, what are your plans next? Now that the old case is closed, how about we go celebrate? Celebrate? Mary's eyes lit up. Ding! The host's long-awaited revenge is complete, and their luck score has skyrocketed. A new quest has been unlocked, Sweet Vacation. Task description: relax and unwind in a scenic spot, accompanied by the handsome guy. Mission reward: one mysterious gift package. The system's voice rang out cheerfully. Mary looked up, meeting the expectant gazes of the two big shots, and gave a sly smile. Sure thing. But this time on vacation, which one of you will be my personal driver and bag carrier? Gu Yanxi raised an eyebrow and said, I can have my private jet stand by. Hosen adjusted his glasses and said, I've booked a top-notch resort by the seaside. Now, who listens to me a little more? Mary deliberately dragged out her tone. As they watched the mischievous spark flickering in the girl's eyes, the two bigwigs exchanged a glance, and once again, an invisible haze of tension filled the air. I'll listen to you. I'll listen to you more. Mary watched this heartwarming scene, and the huge stone that had been weighing on her heart for so long finally came to rest completely. The shadows of her past life have already faded, and the sweet, pampered, and extraordinary life that's destined for her is just about to begin. The car slowly drove off into the distance, and the lingering glow of the setting sun stretched the shadows of the three people long and long, almost as if they were about to reach into a future brimming with endless possibilities. Chapter 6. Island Romance and Exclusive Assistance. The airflow stirred up by the propeller tousled Mary's long hair. Beneath her feet lay a sea as blue as a jewel, and a helicopter landed smoothly on the helipad atop the cliff. This is the most secluded private island under Gu Yanxi's name. The cliffside ocean view villa, resembling a white palace, stands majestically between the clouds and the sea. Welcome to love in the clouds, Gu Yanxi said, gentlemanly extending his hand to help Mary step down the suspended ladder. The sea breeze was salty and moist, and the sunlight was just right. As Mary gazed at the picturesque scenery before her, she took a deep breath, feeling every cell in her body seem to burst into celebration. Ding! The host has entered a high luck zone, lucky aura, effect boosted by 20%. A hidden storyline has been triggered. The battle for island kinghood. As soon as the system's voice had just finished speaking, Mary hadn't even had time to react when the atmosphere between the two big shots standing beside her had already started to turn tense. Hosen straightened his tie, which had been tousled by the sea breeze, and looked at Mary with a smile. Miss Mary, you must be exhausted after such a long journey. As your personal assistant, I think I should take you to your room to rest first. Exclusive assistant? Gu Yanxi raised an eyebrow, a playful curve curling at the corner of his lips. Mr. Hua, this is my territory. It seems to me that I'm the one who should be holding this position. The two of them, separated by Mary, locked eyes in midair, sparks crackling and flying everywhere. Mary, caught in the middle, sighed helplessly. Actually, I myself. No way, the two said in unison, then exchanged glares at each other. Since that's the case, Hosen pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses, a flicker of combativeness flashing in his eyes. Why don't we settle this with our skills? Miss Mary, for the upcoming vacation itinerary, Whoever provides you with the more satisfying service will be today's chief special assistant. What do you say? Gu Yanxi let out a cold laugh, rolled up his sleeve to reveal his strong little forearms. That's exactly what I'm thinking. I hope Mr. Hua doesn't lose too disgracefully. Mary glanced at the inexplicably unfolding battlefield and her lips twitched slightly. Was this even a vacation? It was clear as day that she'd been treated like a trophy to be fought over. However, her eyes darted briefly, and a sly smile curled up at the corner of her lips. Since these two big shots are so eager to win her favor, wouldn't it be a real shame if she didn't take full advantage of this second chance at life that the system has given her? Great, Mary said softly. Then I'll just wait and see. Round 1, Surfing. On the private beach behind the villa, the waves are rolling. Gu Yanxi was dressed in a professional surfing suit, his posture as straight and upright as a pine tree. Holding a surfboard, he walked confidently toward Mary and said, "Mary, get on board. I'll take you out for your first wave. My skills have been certified by the American Surfing Association." General Gu is perhaps a bit too confident. Hosnian held another board in his hand. Although he was wearing a shirt and suit pants, the way he had rolled up his pant legs somehow exuded an air of casual charm, a unique kind of elegance. He stepped to Mary's other side and said softly, "Miss Mary, the most important things in surfing are balance and patience. Although I'm not a professional athlete, I know even better how to keep you safe from the slightest harm. Come on, let me carry you up," Gu Yanxi said assertively, extending his hand. "Miss Mary, let me help you," Mr. Hosni said gentlemanly as he bent down. Mary looked at two pairs of expectant eyes and finally chose to grab with both hands. I'm a bit afraid of water. How about you guys teach me together?" Thus, a bizarre scene unfolded on the beach. Mary stood in the middle of her surfboard, with Gu Yanxi supporting her waist on the left and Hua Xinyan holding her hand on the right. As the two of them struggled against the waves, they also had to watch out for each other's unintentional elbow strikes. "Mr. Hua, did you put your hand in the wrong place?" Gu Yanxi said coldly, kicking away with a foot the hand that Hua Xinyan had extended toward Mary. As he tried to get closer, "Mr. Gu, you're blocking Mary's view of the waves," Hua Xinyan said without changing his expression, and casually pulled Mary closer to himself. Mary stood in the middle, feeling dizzy from the swaying, yet her heart was filled with sweet warmth. The sensation of being protected from every angle by two gorgeous men, it was sweeter than drinking honey itself. Round 2, Massage. Back at the villa, as soon as Mary sat down, the two of them immediately launched into another round of contention. "Mary, you've been out in the sun for so long today. I'm going to give you an essential oil massage. I've specifically trained in traditional Thai massage." Gu Yanxi somehow produced a set of expensive essential oils from thin air. "Thai massage is too aggressive. It's not suitable for Miss Mary," Hosen said, pulling out a stack of traditional Chinese medicine meridian charts. "Chinese Tuina massage would be much more appropriate. It unblocks the meridians and promotes blood circulation while resolving stasis." No need to argue. Mary leaned back on the sofa, closed her eyes, and savored the sea breeze. "You, just go ahead together. The left shoulder is for General Gu, and the right shoulder is for Mr. Hua." "Yes, boss," the two said in unison once more, followed by another round of intense, silent glares. Gu Yanxi's strong hands applied just the right amount of pressure, exuding a dominant yet subtle intensity. Each press sent waves of pleasure through her body, making her want to moan with delight. In contrast, Hua Xinyang's touch was gentle and soothing, like a spring breeze gently caressing her, completely relaxing her entire being. Manager Gu, please focus a bit more on this side," Mary mumbled groggily as she gave instructions. "All right, Mary." Gu Yanxi's lips curved slightly upward, yet his movements beneath her became even gentler. "Mr. Hua, it's sour over here." Mary turned her head to look in the other direction. "Got it. This will ease the tension for you," Hosen said, his eyes full of laughter. As the sun set in the west, the shadows of the two figures stretched long and intertwined around Mary. In that moment, all their previous conflicts seemed to dissolve into a silent understanding. Round 3, Bartending. As night falls, the rooftop terrace of the villa is bathed in a dazzling starry sky. "Mary, drink this deep-sea temptation, a special concoction I've crafted myself. It has a rich, mellow flavor." Gu Yanxi handed over a blue cocktail, its glass rim still adorned with glistening frost. "Miss Mary, try this Kiss of the Moonlight. It has a delicately sweet taste and is especially suited for ladies," Hosen Yen said, handing over a pink drink that gave off a subtle fruity aroma. Mary took 2 glasses of wine and took a sip from each one. Gu Yanxi's wine is fiery upon entering the mouth, just like him. Bold and dominant, yet subtly imbued with a barely perceptible tenderness. Hua Xinyang's wine is crisp, sweet, and refreshing, just like him, gentle as jade, leaving an endlessly lingering aftertaste. They're all delicious, Mary exclaimed sincerely. Who's the chief special assistant? The two of them leaned in again, staring at her eagerly. Mary looked up at the starry sky and then glanced at the two men beside her, who were vying for her attention out of jealousy. A sense of fulfillment she'd never experienced before welled up in her heart. She stood up and walked to the railing, where the sea breeze lifted the hem of her skirt. Actually, the position of chief special assistant. The two held their breath, waiting for the verdict. Mary turned around, her face lighting up with a flower-like smile. It's been revoked. What? Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang both froze simultaneously. Mary stepped between the two men, linking her left arm through Gu Yanxi's and her right arm through Hua Xinyang's, pulling them close to herself. Because I don't need an assistant anymore. What I need is my very own guardian angel. She tiptoed and gently kissed Gu Yanxi on the cheek. Thank you, General Gu, for your overbearing and loving care. Turning his head again, he gently tapped Hosu's glasses. And thank you, Mr. Hosu, for your gentle care. This round ends in a tie. Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang exchanged a glance, and the previously tense atmosphere instantly dissipated. As they looked at Mary's rosy cheeks and sparkling eyes, all their lingering desire to compete melted away, replaced by an overwhelming surge of affection and tenderness. Ding! The host's emotional value has reached its peak, strategy success rate boosted. Gu Yanxi's favorability, 100%, completely devoted. Hua Xinyang's favorability, 100%, unwavering to the very end. Reward issuance, eternal ring, system specialized, bound to the hearts of two individuals. Mary didn't notice the tiny, almost invisible ring-shaped mark on her finger. She simply felt that the breeze at this moment was gentle. The wine was sweet, and the person by her side made her feel as though she'd been reborn. Every single thing in this life was truly worth it. Since it's a draw, Gu Yanxi suddenly reached out, pulling Mary into his embrace, and placed his other hand on Hosnian's shoulder. Then from now on, let's just leave it at that. Hosnian paused for a moment, then smiled and nodded slightly, reaching out to take Mary's other hand in his own. As long as Miss Mary doesn't mind, I'm willing. The three stood at the edge of the cliff, embracing each other as they gazed down at the vast expanse of rolling waves below. The pain of past lives has become a fleeting cloud. The happiness of this life is just beginning. And this island has witnessed their sweetest moments, and will continue to guard every single day and night of their future together. Chapter 7. Returning to the city and cruel revenge on the jerk. The hustle and bustle of the city rushed toward her, yet Mary's heart was strangely calm. On that private island, she found a sweetness and peace unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Now, filled with happiness and armed with the system reward, the eternal ring, she's decided to embark on a new chapter of her life, opening her very own pastry shop. Ding! Host's entrepreneurial will detected. Lucky system activates new module. Culinary master. Current skill, mastery of French pastries, max level. Since that's the case, let's call it Cloudy Sweetheart then, Mary said, her lips curling into a confident smile as she gazed at the shop, a stylish little boutique with a fresh and elegant decor, located in a bustling downtown area. This was the opening gift Gu Yanxi had given her, and Hua Xinyang himself had personally handled all the licensing procedures for her. On the first day of opening, luxury cars lined up in front of the store, and Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang even made a personal appearance to greet customers, instantly drawing countless gazes. However, the bigger the tree, the more likely it is to attract wind. Several young girls, fashionably dressed and meticulously made up, walked into the store. They held designer handbags in their hands, yet their eyes betrayed a hint of disdain and envy. So this is the woman both Mr. Gu and Mr. Hua are protecting at the same time? She doesn't seem all that special, does she? I heard she used to be an unwanted illegitimate daughter. She must have used some bewitching tricks to seduce those two bigwigs. We absolutely have to give her a hard time today. Let her know that not just anyone can waltz into a high society family. The girl leading the way was named Lena, and she was a fervent fan, almost an obsessive one, of Gu Yanxi. She strode confidently toward the counter and slammed her bag heavily onto the table. Waiter, bring out all of your most expensive desserts. We've got to taste what flavor could possibly drive two big shots absolutely crazy. Mary smiled faintly, her eyes clear and serene. All right, please wait a moment. She turned and walked into the kitchen, and the system's voice sounded again. Ding! Malicious provocation detected, triggering the passive skill, absolutely delicious. Current dessert effect, irresistibly tempting, experience it for yourself. In just half an hour, 3 exquisite desserts, each as beautiful as a work of art, were brought to the table. That's love in the clouds, a light mousse that floats gently like a cloud on a delicate porcelain plate, adorned with fresh strawberries and blueberries, exuding an enticing aroma. Lin-Na let out a cold snort, picked up her spoon, scooped a large mouthful, and put it into her mouth. In an instant, her eyes widened. That texture, it's simply indescribable. The mousse melts in your mouth, exuding a rich milky aroma and the refreshing zest of fruit, sweet yet not cloying. Every bite feels like a dance on your tongue, awakening every memory and emotion buried deep within her taste buds. How could this possibly be? Lina murmured to herself, yet her spoon kept moving steadily, taking bite after bite. The other 2 girls also took a bite and were instantly won over. Oh my gosh, this is the best dessert I've ever tasted. This texture, it's simply perfect. Just moments ago, their eyes still held a hostile glare. Now, all that remains is pure astonishment and delight. Mary stood behind the counter, looking at them gently. How does it taste? Mary stood behind the counter, looking at them gently. How does it taste? Lina put down her spoon, her expression on her face incredibly complex. She wanted to find fault, wanted to lose her temper, but her mouth honestly said, delicious, so delicious. I've never tasted such a delicious dessert before. We were wrong. We shouldn't have slandered you out of jealousy. Your desserts are truly amazing. Mary smiled faintly, a hint of mischief flashing in her eyes. If you like it, just drop by more often. My shop welcomes everyone who knows how to appreciate good food. Lina watched Mary's gentle yet confident smile, and the jealousy in her heart instantly vanished, replaced by a sense of admiration. I'm sorry. She lowered her head and apologized sincerely. We'll never do something this boring again. Just then, Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang came down from the second-floor lounge. They had been observing secretly just now and, seeing Mary handle the situation all by herself, their eyes were filled with admiration. Good job, Gu Yanxi said, walking over to Mary and gently ruffling her hair. Hosen smiled as he looked at the girls, who had already become devoted fans. Since you like it so much, why not make Mary's regulars? I'm sure you'll find true happiness right here. Seeing the 2 big shots doting on Mary, Lina finally realized just how ridiculous her previous provocation had been. We'll definitely come back often in the future. Miss Mary, your desserts are truly amazing. Mary watched as the shop gradually filled with more and more customers, listening to their compliments and laughter, and felt a deep sense of fulfillment in her heart. Ding! Your host's career is off to a great start, and your luck score has skyrocketed. Unlock a new quest, Queen of Desserts. Task description: within 1 month, make Cloudy Sweetheart the most popular dessert shop in the entire city. Task reward: double the happiness. Mary raised her head and looked at the 2 guardian spirits beside her, a happy smile curling at the corners of her lips. Mr. Gu, Mr. Hua, I'll be the one cooking tonight's celebration banquet. Okay, we're looking forward to it. Under the city's neon lights, Mary's pastry shop glows brightly, and a sweet aroma fills the entire city. As for those who try to provoke her, they'll ultimately be won over by her talent and charm. With both career and love flourishing, Mary's extraordinary life has only just begun. Chapter 8: Business Storms and the Sweet Defense Line. The popularity of Cloud Sweetie feels like a thorn that has pierced the eyes of certain people. On the 3rd day after opening, a storm suddenly erupted online against Mary. Countless paid commenters flooded major social media platforms, accusing Cloud Sweetie of using stale ingredients and even spreading rumors that Mary would stop at nothing to climb the social ladder and was abusing her employees. The comment section is a mess, and it looks like the brand's reputation is about to collapse. However, are Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang vegetarians? Investigate. Bring to light the person pulling the strings behind the scenes. I'll make sure he's utterly disgraced. Gu Yanxi sat in his office, the steel pen in his hand snapped in 2. His gaze was as cold as ice. Hosnian directly tapped into political resources and coldly ordered, spreading false information and disrupting market order. Notify the Cyberspace Administration to completely ban these marketing accounts. The 2 leaders' decisive actions quickly took effect. The accounts spreading rumors were banned, and the army of paid commentators was investigated. Yet public opinion continued to simmer and escalate. Mary glanced at the news on her phone, yet she showed not the slightest trace of panic. She gently touched the eternal ring on her finger, and a confident smile curled up at the corner of her lips. Ding! Post detected facing a public opinion crisis. Special mission triggered. The taste of truth. Task description: create a cake that conveys sincerity and turns public opinion around. Task reward: charm aura. Since you guys want to see the truth, Mary walked into the kitchen with a determined look in her eyes. Then I'll let you taste what the truth really tastes like. She closed her eyes and activated all her system skills. Top-level baking, emotional infusion, flavor amplification. With this dessert, she'd show everyone that Mary had nothing to be ashamed of. Her conscience was clear. 3 hours later, a brand new cake was born. It's not as lavish as a typical cake. Rather, it's simple and unadorned. Yet it exudes a peculiar fragrance that seems to penetrate the screen and strike straight at the heart. She uploaded a photo of the cake to a social media platform, captioning it, "Thanks to everyone for your attention. This is the new product from Cloud Sweetie, called Original Heart, and it's being given away free to every customer who's willing to come by and taste it. I don't need to explain, I'll let the taste speak for itself." In the photo, the cake is warm and smooth like jade, as if imbued with a magical aura. The moment Gu Yanxi saw the photo, he immediately forwarded it, adding the caption, "I'd vouch for every single one of Mary's desserts. Her heart is sweeter than this cake itself." Hosnian followed closely behind, "Taste, original intention, and feel sincerity. I believe that every person with a conscience will make the right judgment." Endorsed by 2 major male celebrities, coupled with Marina's mysterious original intent cake, it instantly set the entire internet ablaze. Countless people flocked to Cloudy Sweetheart just to taste it for themselves. The moment the first bite of cake touched their lips, everyone's expressions froze. It's a flavor that's hard to put into words. At first bite, there's a subtle bitterness, almost as if it's whispering of past grievances and injustices. But soon after, a refreshing sweetness rises in your heart, like the hope and happiness born anew. Finally, a lingering sweetness lingers on, carrying with it a warm, comforting power that makes you instinctively tear up with emotion. I think I've seen what Miss Mary went through. She really had a tough time. This cake, it seems to hold her soul. She's telling us that she truly loved desserts. Sorry, we misunderstood her earlier." As the customers ate the cake, tears of emotion welled up in their eyes. They eagerly shared photos on social media, sincerely and passionately speaking out in Mary's defense. "Chuxin is not just a cake, it's a cleansing of the soul. Miss Mary, we're rooting for you." Public opinion instantly reversed, and the previous rumors collapsed on their own. Meanwhile, the mastermind behind the scenes, a rival company that had been jealous of Mary's business, completely fell apart the moment it saw public opinion shift. Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang stood outside the shop, watching Mary bustling about inside, looking happy and content. They exchanged a smile with each other. "You have a good eye," Hosen said with a smile. "My people are, of course, the best," Gu Yanxi said proudly. Mary came out holding 2 glasses of specially made lemonade and handed one to each of them. "Thanks, guys. But this time, you don't have to completely solve everything for me. I can handle it myself." "We know," the 2 said in unison, their eyes filled with affection. Ding! Mission complete. The host has successfully turned public opinion around and gained plus 1,000 luck points. The reward has been issued. Charm Aura. Mary felt a sudden lightness throughout her body, as if something inside her had awakened. She raised her head and looked at the 2 guardian spirits beside her, a breathtaking smile curling up at the corners of her lips. "Next, who else would like to challenge me?" The storm of commerce was utterly routed before Mary's sweet defense. And in the midst of this turmoil, her career became even more solid and stable. Chapter 9. The Mystery of Origins and the Family Dinner Party. Just as the controversy surrounding Cloud Sweetheart was subsiding, an unexpected visitor arrived, once again stirring up trouble. The newcomer was an elderly man with graying hair and an elegant demeanor. As he looked at Mary, his clouded eyes were filled with both guilt and tenderness. "Mary, my daughter, it's Dad." It turned out that Mary's biological father, Lin Jindong, had been forced to leave his hometown years ago after his business failed, and he'd mistakenly believed that his wife and daughter were no longer alive. Now that he's made a fresh start and happened to see a news report, he finally recognized that the strong young girl was none other than his long-lost daughter. "I'm so sorry, Dad's late. Losing you back then is the greatest pain of my life," Lin Jindong said, tears streaming down his face as he handed over a gold-embossed invitation, trembling with emotion. "The Gu and Hua families are about to host a joint family dinner. I hope you'll return as the young lady of the Lin family and stand tall and proud before everyone." Mary looked at her aging father before her, and the icy barrier in her heart gradually began to melt. She nodded and said, "All right, I'll go." When the news reached Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyang's ears, both of them instantly erupted in excitement. "What? You want her to go into that den of dragons and tigers' lair?" "No way." Gu Yanxi shot up from his seat, his eyes filled with alertness. "The elders of the Gu and Hua families have long been trying to arrange a marriage between the 2 of them, and this dinner party would certainly be swarming with all sorts of socialites eager to get their attention. And possibly even more than just attention. Hosnian also frowned deeply. Those family clans are deeply entangled and interwoven. If Mary were to go, she'd likely become a target. Still, since my father-in-law has extended the invitation, of course we'll do our utmost to ensure her safety. Who says she's your mother-in-law? She's my fiancée. Gu Yanxi glared at him. There's still no legal conclusion yet, right, Mr. Gu? Ho Xinyan refused to back down. The two were on the verge of a showdown. But in the end they reached an agreement. They'd accompany Mary every step of the way, never leaving her side. On the evening of the family dinner, Mary wore a simple yet elegant white gown, looking like an angel descended from heaven. Gu Yanxi was dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, while Hua Shernyan donned a soft, jade-like gray tuxedo. Standing side by side, one on each side, Gu and Hua flanked Mary, their presence so commanding that no one dared to meet their gaze directly. As soon as I stepped in, countless pairs of eyes immediately turned toward me, some filled with curiosity, others with envy, and still others with outright disdain. So this is the illegitimate daughter? Not much to look at. Yet both General Gu and Mr. Hua are smitten with her at the same time. I don't know what tricks they've pulled, but today I'm determined to make her humiliate herself. An elder from a collateral branch of the Gu family, the elderly Madame Gu, came over, holding a wine glass, and said with a forced smile, Yen Ci, Xin Yen, you two grown men are hanging around some girl of dubious origins? What kind of behavior is that? Today there are so many young ladies from prestigious families here. Why don't you take a look at them instead? Gu Yanxi's expression darkened, and he was about to lose his temper when Hua Xinyang stepped forward first, offering a gentle smile as he stood protectively in front of Mary. Mrs. Gu, Mary is not only the eldest daughter of the Lin family, she's also someone we've all recognized together. Her origins are perfectly clear. It's actually we who've been fortunate enough to gain her favor. Exactly, Gu Yanxi snorted coldly, taking Mary's hand. Anyone who dares to lay a finger on her is picking a fight with me, Gu Yanxi. Lin Jindong also stepped forward at this moment and said in a loud voice, everyone, this is my daughter, Lin Jindong. Anyone who dares to look down on her is looking down on my Lin family. The entire audience erupted in murmurs. Who didn't know that Lin Jindong was now a major business tycoon? With this revelation, Mary's status instantly became incredibly prestigious. At the dinner party, various undercurrents were brewing. A jealous socialite deliberately splashed red wine onto Mary. Gu Yanxi, quick as a flash, swiftly pulled Mary into his arms, and the red wine ended up all over his suit. My clothes are dirty, Gu Yanxi said, but he didn't seem to mind at all. On the contrary, he was enjoying himself as he inhaled the fragrance emanating from Mary's body. Still, it was worth it just to have you in my arms. Hosnian gave the celebrity offender a cold stare and said calmly, it seems some people just aren't suited to being at an occasion like this. Security, please ask her to leave and notify her company. Our collaboration is hereby cancelled. No, Mr. Hua, the socialite cried out as she was dragged away. Mary watched the two men who had been fighting fiercely for her, feeling both touched and amused at the same time. Ding! The host shines at the family dinner, earning plus 800 in luck points. A new skill has been unlocked, noble etiquette. As the dinner came to an end, Mary sat in the car on her way home, with Gu Yanxi, visibly jealous, on her left and the gentle Hua Xinyang on her right. Mary, stay away from those relatives in the future, they're all awful, Gu Yanxi mumbled. Don't be afraid, we're here with you. No one can hurt you, Ha said softly, lightly patting her hand. Mary looked at the two of them, a happy smile curling up at the corners of her lips. In this life, she not only rediscovered family ties but also found the most perfect love. The mystery of her origins is unveiled, and the family dinner is a resounding success. Mary's life is now utterly fulfilled. Chapter 10, Utmost Pampering and the Pinnacle of Sweetness. The turmoil surrounding the family dinner completely cleared away all lingering shadows. Mary's identity was finally settled, no longer just the much-loved young lady of the Lin family, but also an irreplaceable treasure in the hearts of Gu Yanxi and Hua Xinyan. To make up for the sense of security Mary had lacked in her previous life, and to celebrate the fulfillment of her new beginning, a long-planned three-person honeymoon is officially underway. On the Gu family's private jet, Mary was lounging comfortably in the middle, wrapped in a cozy silk pajama set. On her left, Gu Yanxi was boldly peeling the grape skins, gently holding the glistening, translucent flesh up to her lips. Be good, open your mouth. This is a top-quality variety flown in from France. On her right, Hosnian carefully adjusted the angle of her first-class seat, his gentle voice tinged with a smile. Don't eat too much sweets, Mary. I've prepared a specially blended health tea for you. It's great for your skin. You too. Mary's cheeks flushed slightly as she watched the unhidden affection in their eyes, feeling a sweetness in her heart as if it were filled with honey. This round-the-world trip is nothing short of the epitome of indulgence. Under the Eiffel Tower in Paris, Gu Yanxi rented out the entire top floor of the tower, hosting a private light show for just 3 people. On a private island in the Maldives, Xin Yang personally took to the kitchen, preparing the freshest seafood feast for her, while Gu Yanxi sat beside him, feeding her ice cream and watching the cream smudge at the corners of her lips. Unable to resist, he leaned down and gently licked it away, prompting Xin Yang to let out a soft cough, yet his eyes were filled with laughter. Ding! The host's happiness is through the roof. Gain 5,000 luck points. Unlock the ultimate skill, Queen of Business. The system's beep echoed in her mind. Mary not only received abundant love, but also reached the pinnacle of her career. Cloud Sweetheart, located thousands of miles away, has swept across the globe at an unstoppable pace, thanks to Gu Yanxi's financial investment and Xin Yang's supportive policies. Within just 1 month, chain stores have sprung up on all 5 continents, and Mary's Rebirth series desserts have become in such high demand that they're simply impossible to get hold of. News outlets are vying to report, Dessert Queen Mary, healing the world with flavor. Gu and Wu join forces to strongly support it. The Cloud Sweetheart sees its stock price double on the first day of trading. On the plane, Mary glanced at the news on her phone, a confident smile curling at the corners of her lips. She was no longer the weak woman who had been bullied at will. She was now a true business legend. It seems my little sweetheart isn't just a queen in life, she's also unbeatable in her career, Gu Yanxi said, his eyes filled with even deeper affection as he watched Mary intently studying the financial reports. Hosen gently took Mary's hand. Whether you choose to keep running the shop or return to your family, we'll always be here to support you. Mary raised her head, gazing at the brilliant starry sky outside the window, then glanced at the 2 men beside her who loved her deeply. Her heart was filled with a sense of fulfillment unlike any she'd ever experienced before. The hardships of her past life have long since been transformed into nourishment for this life. She has found the most perfect love, the most fulfilling family bonds, and the most brilliant career. Yen Ci, this year, Mary called softly. The 2 of them responded simultaneously, their gazes intense and piercing. Thank you all. Throughout my life, meeting you has been my greatest fortune. The airplane flew through the clouds, soaring toward a wider sky. And Mary's life, just like this journey, has no end, only endless sweetness and happiness. Story 2. I was transmigrated as the villain's wicked stepmother, and the system demanded I not break character. I looked down at the 5-year-old pipsqueak at my feet, and viciously swapped the milk in his hand for bitter melon juice. From that day on he was never allowed to be a picky eater. If he wanted a pet he was the designated poop scooper. Later when it was time for his university applications, I even secretly changed his choices. Years later the villain was successful and famous. I thought my doom was at hand. Instead he stood before the media and said the person I'm most grateful for is my mother. Her love guided me as I grew and she pointed me toward my path in life. Wait, is something not quite right here? After dying from an illness, the system allowed me to continue living by transmigrating me as the villain's wicked stepmother. The price was that I couldn't break character. This was an urban novel for a male audience. Zhu Yu, only 5 years old now, would one day become the great villain who destroyed the male protagonist's family. And the primary source of his psychological trauma was me, his wicked stepmother. I pondered for a moment. I really had no experience in being wicked, so I simplified it to a basic concept. I just couldn't let him be too comfortable, thus I turned to the little pipsqueak sitting quietly in his chair sipping his milk. I snatched the cup from his hand and gave it to the nanny. Change this to bitter melon juice, the more bitter the better. The little guy froze for a second, a white mustache of milk still on his upper lip. He glared at me angrily but didn't dare to speak. When I transmigrated, this body had already been married into the Zhu family for over half a year. According to the original plot, after discovering that Zhu Qingli, the villain's father, was rarely home, I gradually dropped my gentle facade. I began to torment and frame little Zhu Yu in various ways. He had resisted at first, but what chance did a child have against an adult? Whenever he tried to tattle, I would just double down, framing him and twisting his words. After prolonged psychological abuse, he had learned to swallow his anger. My job now was to continue this behavior and maybe add a little personal flair. Zhu Yu had probably never had bitter melon juice before. His little face scrunched up and he subconsciously stuck out his tongue. My heart melted at his cuteness, but I still said coldly, drink it all. For a child eating bitter melon is a form of torture. How is this not a form of abuse? I was just too good at being a wicked stepmother. At that thought I couldn't help but let out a laugh. After breakfast the nanny was about to take Zuyu to school. I frowned as I watched him change into a set of cheap shabby clothes. Why are you deliberately dressing like this? Didn't you say before that we shouldn't encourage a child's vanity, and that it's better to be low-key? TSK, the original character's persona was truly malicious and insidious. To think she'd try to crush Zuyu's self-esteem this way, but she had miscalculated. What do kindergartners know about wealth and poverty at this age? What children fear most is being ostracized and isolated. With that in mind, I immediately had the nanny change Zuyu into a little suit. He even wore a cute little bow tie. Then I had the driver bring out the most expensive, most ostentatious car from the garage. I had to ensure he would be the most special kid in the entire kindergarten. Envy the rich. I want them all to envy the rich. Perhaps because my behavior was a little different from usual. Before leaving, little Zuyu pursed his lips nervously and asked softly, "Why are you doing this?" I squatted down and let out a couple of sinister cackles. "Because I'm evil." Little Zuyu stumbled back in fright. I took the opportunity to lunge forward and plant a kiss on his chubby little cheek. He covered his face in horror. I seized the chance to threaten him, "Hurry up and say goodbye to mommy, or I'll come to the kindergarten and corner you myself this afternoon." After our past 6 months together, he was supposed to hate me. Me kissing him and making him call me mommy was tantamount to dancing on his last nerve, but he had no choice but to submit. Watching Zuyu's tightly shut mouth as he ran out the door, I felt I was being wicked beyond measure. After Zuyu left for school, I started wandering aimlessly around the villa. The novel mentioned that Zhu Qingli was busy with work and often wouldn't come home for 10 days, or even half a month at a time. I was essentially a wife he married just to take care of Zuyu. He gave me 3 million a month for living expenses. He probably thought the huge allowance would make this stepmother treat his child well. But he never expected it would instead fuel her greed. Thinking of this, I asked the system with a sigh, "How long do I have to maintain this wicked persona?" The system said Zuyu's stepmother has a crucial scene where she secretly changes his university application choices, forcing him to go abroad where he encounters even darker things. So I had to maintain my persona at least until Zuyu's college entrance exams. A rough calculation put that at least 13 years away, although living the life of a rich man's wife was a win in itself. Maintaining a wicked persona every day was exhausting, so I decided to go on a wild shopping spree to console myself. As dusk began to settle, the driver pulled up to the kindergarten right on time. Zuyu hadn't said goodbye to me when he left this morning. If I said I'd pick him up, I had to keep my word to firmly establish my authority to let him know the terror of his stepmother. I had to admit this private kindergarten was built like a small castle. Before long, a teacher led a group of tiny tots to the gate. They waddled over to find their parents. I sat in the car for a while. First, my plan was to suddenly appear when Zuyu was panicking that his parent had forgotten him, giving him a good scare. But to my surprise, as soon as the teacher left, several kids immediately surrounded Zuyu. I could faintly hear them saying something like, "Mommy came to pick up." Zuyu lowered his head in silence. Those kids then started jumping around him, clapping their hands. Me, wait, what kind of game is this? As a proper wicked stepmother, I immediately appeared to interrupt their fun. "Hey, why haven't you little brats gone home yet? Don't tell me your parents abandoned you." "No way, no way." I pulled the surrounded Zuyu to my side and glared fiercely at the group of children. "Yes, this is it. I'm going to alienate all his friends." "Who are you? Are you the liar's big sister?" Being called big sister made me feel a little giddy, but I immediately retorted, "What liar? Who's a liar? Didn't your teacher teach you to call people by their names?" "I'm Zuyu's mother. Zuyu doesn't like you, so you're not allowed to play with him anymore." "Zu's mother? His mother is the nanny. I've seen her. She doesn't look like you." And he lied and said that wasn't his mother. "He's just a vain liar. We don't want to play with him anyway." What was all this nonsense? I am Zu's mother. I raised my fist in anger, and the group of brats immediately ran off laughing. Just then Zuyu, who had been standing behind me, tugged on the corner of my clothes. His big eyes were shimmering as he looked at me. "Thank you for picking me up today. Something isn't right." Why is he thanking me? Perhaps my move to establish authority was effective. Zuyu was exceptionally well behaved when we got home. Not only did he follow me around like a little puppy, but he even peeled shrimp for me at dinner. He carefully placed the shrimp in my bowl. When he saw I wasn't eating it, he even added, "I washed my hands." I picked up my chopsticks. "Delicious. You did a good job. As a reward, you can peel a few more for me." Little Zuyu pursed his lips and lowered his head, starting to peel shrimp with great concentration. Finally, I couldn't eat anymore, and the remaining shrimp went into his stomach. I was too full from dinner, so I needed some exercise. Considering my wicked persona, what better exercise was there than tormenting a child? I walked into the room carrying 18 shopping bags. I beckoned to Zuyu, who was playing with a 9-linked ring puzzle. "Come try on some clothes." Little Zu's clothes were usually custom made and delivered directly. He had probably never had to try on clothes clothes before. So he was quite excited at first, he even smiled, revealing his little canine teeth, until later he choked back a sob. Please, I can't try on anymore. But we still haven't tried the little bee, the little penguin, the little yellow duck, and the little monster outfits. Zuyu fell silent. He just stood there in the little green dinosaur costume, looking at me with teary eyes. Me fine, the wicked plan continues, just with a different activity. When it was time for bed, I decided to subject Zuyu to one last round of torture for the day. I forced him to stay in my room and sleep with me. After he changed into his pajamas, I handed him a storybook. Read mommy a story to help her fall asleep. Zuyu stared blankly as if he couldn't comprehend how such a shameless adult could exist, but he still took the storybook. Once upon a time, a queen was sitting by an open window sewing for her daughter. Me, I forgot the kid was only 5 and didn't know many words, but this gave me an idea. Most kids love to play and hate to study. A flash of inspiration struck me. A wicked plan slowly began to form in my mind. Beside me, Zuyu was still stumbling through the storybook. He probably knew he didn't recognize many words, and seeing me staring at him, his little face flushed red and his voice grew quieter and quieter. I'll read to you again tomorrow, okay? I let out a couple of sinister cackles and snatched the book from him. Lie down now, it's mommy's turn to tell you a story. Today's story is called Snow White and Her 7 Stepmothers, an absolutely terrifying story. In the end, I don't know if Zuyu fell asleep, but I certainly talked myself to sleep in a daze. I thought I felt something soft press against my cheek and a soft voice calling me mommy. The next morning, while Zuyu was at school, I began to implement my intensive tutoring plan. I arranged for everything: Chinese, advanced math, English, music. I hired the best tutors and assigned the toughest books. I had expected Zuyu to come home from school and feel like his world was ending, but he adapted surprisingly well. He was especially diligent with learning to read. A few days later, as I was passing the study, he poked his little head out and read aloud. Once upon a time, a queen was sitting by an open window doing needlework for her daughter. After finishing, he looked at me with an expectant face. To encourage him, I decided to reward him by having him read me a bedtime story every night. Half a month later, my wicked stepmother plan had made no new progress. I sent Zuyu back to his own room. Then I hid under the covers and secretly opened a copy of Cinderella, hoping to find some inspiration. I didn't expect to fall asleep after reading just 2 pages. When I woke up again, the mattress dipped twice and a section by the edge of the bed sank. In the darkness, I couldn't see clearly and just assumed Zuyu had snuck, and I subconsciously reached out to pull the blanket over him. But my hand touched a firm muscular chest. I froze for a second, then frantically turned on the bedside lamp, a scream tearing from my throat. Who the hell are you, buddy? The handsome man before me bore a slight resemblance to Zuyu. He raised an eyebrow at my words. If I recall correctly, I should be your husband, Zhu Qingli. Oh my god. I almost forgot about him. Not bad, at least you still remember my name. I sheepishly explained to my benefactor that I was just groggy from sleep. Just then there was an urgent knock on the door. Before I could say anything, the person anxiously turned the doorknob. Zuyu was standing at the door hugging his teddy bear, a baby with his little bare feet. Seeing Zhu Qingli, he stared blankly and called out, "Dad." Then he walked over to me and placed his small hand on my head. What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare with Zhu Qingli here? I knew I couldn't reveal my stepmother nature, so I gently soothed Zuyu and urged him to go back to sleep. Unexpectedly, little Zuyu nodded but walked directly to the other side of the bed. He looked at his dad and said with a hint of grievance, "This is my spot." Me, Zhu Qingli said sternly, "This is Dad's spot. Before Dad came back, I always slept here. That was just temporary. Now you should go back to your own room." Zuyu pursed his lips and said nothing. He silently handed me his teddy bear, saying that hugging it would prevent nightmares. It seemed Zhu Qingli was a standard strict father, raising his child without spoiling him. No wonder it took him 8 years in the original novel to discover I was abusing Zuyu. Seeing that Zuyu was about to leave, I panicked. I quickly picked him up and placed him in the middle of the bed. "Good boy, sleep with mommy and daddy tonight." Zuyu looked at me, then at his dad, a little confused. I immediately acted cute. Honey. Calling him honey was better than sharing a bed with a stranger. Zhu Qingli stiffened, grunted in agreement, and turned his back to lie down. For some reason, though, the tips of his ears were bright red, perhaps because the company was gradually getting on track. Zhu Qingli stayed home for an unusually long time. At the dinner table, he asked Zuyu how he had been lately. I shot Zuyu a standard warning smile, glaring at him fiercely. Sure enough, he pursed his little lips and said he had been especially happy recently. He mentioned that when he had a nosebleed from being too high a while ago, I had the nanny prepare bitter melon juice for him every day, and he got better after just 2 days. He also said I picked him up from school personally every day, bought him beautiful clothes, chased away the kids who bullied him, and even hired tutors to help him catch up on his lessons. Even his real mom wouldn't be this attentive. I was so moved I almost cried. This kid was a fantastic storyteller. Zhu Qingli Chingli also seemed very satisfied and immediately transferred 5 million to me, telling me to buy whatever I liked. I was so happy I wanted to salute on the spot and shout, "Thank you, boss," 3 times. For the next few days, I diligently played the role of a loving mother. Until Zhu Chingli had to go abroad again to manage a branch office. I turned to look at Zhu Yu, who was politely saying goodbye at the door, and let out a sinister cackle. "Your good days are over, little one. As the system-appointed wicked stepmother, I must remember my original purpose and not forget my mission." That night I put the inspiration I got from Cinderella into practice on Zhu Yu. I pointed at his used bowl and chopsticks and said, "You go wash these." Zhu Yu said, "Oh," and obediently carried his small bowl to the sink. As he washed, he asked me like this, "Should I add this? Is it clean now?" It was a bit like playing house. He seemed to be enjoying it. I snorted, directing him while announcing my new rule from now on. Not only did he have to wash his own dishes, but he also had to wash his own socks and underwear. He was to become the Cinderfella of the new era. On the weekend, I hired a fitness coach to train Zhu Yu in running. I had done my best with psychological torment. Now I could only think of tormenting him physically, so Zhu Yu and the coach ran themselves ragged up front while I took a leisurely stroll behind them. As we started the second lap, a faint meow came from behind a bush. I pushed the branches aside and saw a small pure white kitten. It was filthy and could barely walk steadily. Just then a panting Zhu Yu came over. "It's a kitten. Why is it here all alone? Where's its mommy? Maybe she went out for something." Zhu Yu nodded and said nothing. But for the rest of the training session his mind was clearly elsewhere. As the sky darkened and it was time to go home, Zhu Yu looked at the kitten still in the same spot. "Hasn't its mommy come back yet?" Judging by the kitten's fur, it had most likely been abandoned. I didn't say anything, but Zhu Yu seemed to understand. He walked over, cradled the kitten in his arms, and looked at me with a pleading gaze. "Can we keep it for the sake of my wicked stepmother persona?" I should have thrown the kitten out of his arms right then and scolded him for getting his clothes dirty. But with 2 pairs of round eyes staring at me, my heart just melted. "Just this once," I thought to myself. Then I went to the supermarket next door and got a cardboard box. On the way back, Zhu Yu took the rare initiative to hold my hand. His hand was small, only able to grasp 3 of my fingers. I looked down, and the usually expressionless child actually gave me a fawning smile. I thought he was expressing his gratitude for the kitten, but as we entered the house he whispered in my ear, I'll be good, so please don't be like the kitten's mommy and abandoned me." My eyes grew hot and my nose tingled, but a wicked stepmother must never show weakness. I nonchalantly pinched Zhu's little cheek and said in a harsh tone, "From now on you're in charge of scooping the poop. And I'm in charge of petting the cat." The kitten was named Snow White. Zhu Yu said that even though Snow White only had one stepmother, he would take good care of her. The next day I saw Zhu Yu consulting the nanny with his little bottom in the air. He was huffing and puffing as he fed the kitten milk and scooped its litter. The days passed unhurriedly. Zhu Chingli would occasionally come back and bring gifts for me and Zhu Yu. Aside from being gone for 10 days to half a month at a time, he was actually a pretty good guy. I don't know if other wealthy wives feel empty because their husbands are never home, but for me this life was awesome. One day I was lying on the living room couch watching a trashy web series about rich family drama. Zhu Yu suddenly ran up to me. "The kindergarten is holding a parent-child sports day in a couple of days. Can you come?" I raised an eyebrow. Little Zhu Yu immediately said, "I'll peel pommel for you. And I'll tell you a story at night." As if afraid I wouldn't agree, he bit his lip and added that he was willing to continue trying on clothes with me. I scratched my head for a moment. I couldn't tell who the child was since I was bored at home anyway. I agreed. Zhu Yu let out a small cheer watching his skipping figure. I felt that this child had become much more lively than when I first met him on the day of the parent-child sports day. I woke up especially early. I put my hair up and changed into casual wear. When the teacher saw me, she was taken aback for a moment. "You're Zhu's parent, the person who came last time. I don't think it was you." I was also taken aback and looked down at Zhu Yu. He pursed his lips. "The nanny came last time, so that's how it was. No wonder those brats," said Zhu. "Yes, mother was the nanny. Who in their right mind would have a nanny attend their child's school activities?" I awkwardly explained the situation to the teacher and left my contact information, saying she could contact me for anything related to Zhu Yu in the future. The opening ceremony of the sports day was a group dance by the kindergartners. Every child had to go up and perform. Zhu Yu stood in the front row. As he danced, he kept glancing at me. His little face was as red as a tomato. I couldn't help but start snapping pictures with my phone like crazy. Just then the system came online. "Do you still remember your persona is a wicked stepmother? Remember your original purpose and don't forget your mission." This I immediately argued. "I'm saving these to humiliate Zuyu later. Just imagine in broad daylight at the height of his success. A big screen suddenly starts playing a video of you doing a butt-wiggling dance in kindergarten. How is that not a complete and utter social ruin? I could clearly sense that the system was a bit speechless, but thankfully it didn't press the issue. After the opening ceremony was the parent-child relay race with teams formed by drawing lots. For Zuyu, who had been training for a while, this was a piece of cake. Just as Zuyu was about to win by a landslide, a brat from the next team taunted him. "The nanny your family sent this time is much younger and prettier than the last one. This is my mother." This was the first time Zuyu had publicly acknowledged me. I was inexplicably touched. What's so great about that? Why didn't you have a mother before? She's probably a stepmother. With a stepmother comes a stepfather. You're in for a miserable life, you little unwanted orphan. Nair. Zuyu got angry and started arguing with him. I couldn't bring myself to scold a child directly, so I looked at the woman standing nearby, who seemed completely unconcerned, and said, "Is this how you usually teach your child?" My child didn't say anything wrong. "Aren't you just a stepmother, so you're his real mother?" Then I couldn't tell. I would have thought you were deliberately letting your child be raised poorly. The woman was so angry she was speechless. Just as she was about to shove me, a teacher appeared in time and led her away. I continued playing some other small games with Zuyu for a while. We quickly forgot the unpleasant incident, but I never expected our paths to cross again. In the afternoon's parent friendship race, I ran into the mother and son again. The woman had changed into sportswear and was boasting that she would crush me. My physical fitness was average, but I gave it my all. Seeing the two of us competing fiercely, the crowd around us cheered just as I was half a step ahead and about to cross the finish line. The brat appeared out of nowhere and suddenly stuck his foot out, tripping me. I lost my balance and fell heavily to the ground, scraping my arm and drawing blood. "Yay, my mommy's going to win, my mommy's going to win. Zu's mommy is a loser." The brat jumped up and down cheering, but I immediately transformed into an expert crawler, managing to crawl across the finish line a step ahead of his mom. The brat and his mother were both stunned. "Oh, I won, your mommy is the loser." The brat let out a wail and was about to kick me. "Mommy." Zuyu, his eyes red, ran from the spectator area and pushed the brat to the ground. Now the woman was furious. She raised her hand to slap Zuyu sitting on the ground. I couldn't stop her in time. Fortunately, someone suddenly strode forward against the light and firmly gripped the woman's wrist. "First you bully my wife, and now you want to bully my child. Do you really think I Zhu Qingli don't exist?" Zhu Qingli, he actually made it. The woman cowed and her husband also appeared from somewhere to smooth things over. "Mr. Zhu, please don't be angry. It's a competitive race. Injuries are inevitable. The kids don't know any better. Please don't take it to heart. How about this? We'll cover Mrs. Zhu's medical expenses." Zhu Qingli walked over, swept me up into his arms, and then used his free hand to take Zhu's. "A competitive race. Injuries are inevitable. Good. I hope Mr. Shao remembers that." "I'm sorry I'm late." Zhu Qingli carried me back to the car. He apologized as he treated my wound. He said he was busy with company matters and Zuyu had told him it was fine to come in the afternoon, so he hadn't rushed. Then he turned and apologized to Zuyu, who was blowing on my scrape. I quickly said it was fine, that it was understandable for a benefactor to be busy with important things, but he sighed and said, "You and I are husband and wife. You're allowed to be angry with me. How should I put this? If you knew I had a monthly allowance of 3 million, you'd understand why I couldn't bring myself to be angry, considering there were still activities later and my injury wasn't serious." We returned to the spectator seats. Zhu Qingli had specifically changed into sportswear. I asked him about it. He stroked Zhu Yu's little head and said nonchalantly, "I just signed up for an event. I can't let my wife and child be bullied for nothing, can I?" And so in the final father's basketball friendship game, I watched Zhu Qingli dominate the court, especially the brat's father, Mr. Shao. Every shot he took was blocked. Every time he caught the ball, he was tightly guarded. The last time Zhu Qingli's basketball hit him square in the face, his nose started gushing blood. Zhu Qingli calmly dribbled the ball. "It's a competitive game. Injuries are inevitable. Please don't take it to heart. I'll cover your medical expenses if you insist on making an issue of it. My legal team and I are at your service." From the stands, Zuyu cheered, "Dad is so cool." I looked at Zhu Qingli, his hair slightly disheveled, and silently agreed. On the way back, Zuyu was exhausted and fell asleep in my arms. I looked at Zhu Qingli and said softly, "I didn't know you could play basketball after all this time together." I felt comfortable enough to joke with my benefactor. Zhu Qingli raised an eyebrow. "What do you think I'm like? I wasn't born 28 years old before my older brother passed away. I wasn't much different from any other rich kid." His older brother, I don't think he was ever mentioned in the original novel. Seeing Zhu Qingli's guarded expression, I didn't press further. After we got home, he carried Zuyu back to his room. At that moment, I didn't realize the gravity of the situation. I leisurely went to take a shower until it was just me and Zhu Qingli in the room. Seeing my inconvenience, he came over to help me blow dry my hair. His fair fingers moved gently through my dark hair. My heart inexplicably started to race. When our eyes met, Zhu Qingli suddenly finally leaned down and kissed the top of my head. You and you on, let's be a real husband and wife, okay? What does that mean? We were a fake couple before. My brain, which had been bewitched by his good looks, instantly cleared, and then I learned a part of the story that wasn't in the original novel. It turned out that when Zhu Qingli married me, we had signed an agreement. The 3 million monthly allowance came with a condition: he wouldn't have a child with me until Zuyu turned 16. No wonder he never asked me to fulfill my wifely duties before I get paid and I don't have to have kids. And now my handsome 8-pack Abid benefactor is offering himself up to me. Oh my god, could things get any better? Zhu Qingli and I started dating. Yes, I told him a bit pretentiously that we had to date first. The frequency of his visits home didn't change much, but the number of phone calls increased significantly. Sometimes he would even report to me what he had for lunch and who he was entertaining at night. As for Zuyu, ever since he called me mommy at the parent-child sports day, it was like he had opened the door to a new world. It was mommy this and mommy that all day long. I asked him why he never called me that before. He pouted his little lips. You didn't let me before. You didn't like it. Besides, you weren't nice to me back then, so I didn't want to call you mommy. And I'm nice to you now. Zuyu didn't answer. After a moment he leaned close to my ear and said, I have a secret to tell you. I like mommy the most in the whole world. I smiled. I have a secret to tell you too. No more tablet and 20 more math problems. Zuyu, just kidding. I am after all the wicked stepmother. One day Zhu Qingli came home early. For a change he sent Zuyu away and led me to the study. With a serious expression he looked at me and said, let's get a divorce. What I thought I had misheard, but Zhu Qingli's expression was grave. In a flash my mind was filled with the thought that not only was I about to be heartbroken, but my arduous task as a wicked stepmother would also be incomplete. Seeing the look of utter devastation on my face, Zhu Qingli quickly pulled me closer. You don't panic, it's my fault for not being clear. It's a fake divorce. He then explained in a low voice that there was a mole among the company's senior executives and he needed to create a diversion by pretending to liquidate his assets. He asked me to cooperate with him in this act. Hearing this I breathed a sigh of relief. My cushy life with a 3 million a month salary was safe, but then again, if this were one of those trashy web series about rich family drama, he would have at least used a female secretary to deliberately drive me away. Then it would be you torture me, I torture you, we'd torture each other for 300 rounds before reconciling. When I told Zhu Qingli this, he gave me a complicated look and tapped me on the forehead. I laughed and began to listen seriously to his revenge plan. We were so engrossed in our conversation that we didn't notice someone lying on the floor by the study door, intermittently overhearing words like divorce and bankruptcy. By the time Zhu Qingli and I had finished our discussion, the moment I opened the door I saw Zuyu with tears welling up in his eyes. Little codfish. Before I could finish he let out a wail and threw himself around my leg. You don't have to ask, I'm going with you. Me and Snow White are both going with you. We're your private property. Me, Zhu Qingli. It was very difficult to explain to a child what was going on. The day the divorce news was released I was supposed to leave alone, but I couldn't stand Zhu. Yes, loud crying, mommy, hick, don't go, hick, I'll collect plastic bottles to support you. A few times when he was running with his coach, he had seen elderly scavengers in the park. I had explained their situation to him. I didn't expect him to remember. In the end I had no choice but to have the driver take a long detour and drop Zuyu off at my current apartment. The apartment was no match for the villa, only about 100 square meters. I didn't hire a nanny. I spent my days tidying up with Zuyu. I have to say it had been a while since I'd enjoyed the pleasure of being a wicked stepmother. Zuyu on the other hand not only adapted well but also became strangely diligent. He said, mommy, don't worry, when I become a genius prodigy I'll definitely lead you back in a blaze of glory. I'll study you to death. Studies me. I had clearly explained to him that it was fake. Next time I watch a trashy web series about rich family drama I'm not playing it out loud. The apartment was in the city, much more convenient than the villa. I ate a long-awaited piece of fried chicken and let out a satisfied sigh. Little Zuyu poked at the nutritious meal in front of him on the verge of tears from craving. Mommy, what are you eating? Suffering, but it smells so good. Smells good, tastes bitter. Kids can't eat it, it's deadly for kids. I'm a big kid. Oh, then let me test you. What's 36,780 times 5482? Zuyu 0. Yes, I was doing it on purpose. I had to occasionally remind everyone of my wicked stepmother persona, but I could let him have a sip of taro milk. Hey, after some time I got tired of all the takeout options in the area. Zhu Qingli's company issues were finally resolved. When he came to pick us up I was cooking and couldn't get my hands free, so I sent Zuyu to open the door unexpectedly. When he saw it was Zhu Qingli he blinked his big eyes and asked, Mister, who are you looking for? Why are you at my house? Zhu Qingli, although calling him Mister wasn't wrong if I recall correctly, I should be your father. Mommy, there's a strange man outside, let's kick him out. Looks like he was angry with his father. I answered in agreement, but didn't go out. Zuyu pattered back into the living room in his slippers. Zhu Qingli came in and reasoned with him for a long time before he was finally placated. In the end little Zuyu said, I'll forgive you, but only if you treat me to something to eat. What do you want to eat? I want to eat suffering. Then Zhu Qingli went into the kitchen, rolled up his shirt sleeves, and personally made Zhu Yu a plate of scrambled eggs with bitter melon. Zhu Yu, no, not that the seasons changed, and in the blink of an eye Zhu Yu was already in high school. Over the years I had strictly enforced my stepmother as housekeeper policy, resolutely preventing him from living the life of a young master. He even started riding a bicycle to school. One day, he sent me a message after school, saying he was bringing a classmate home. I replied with an okay and then started ordering food: grilled cold noodles, fried chicken strips, rose ice jelly, savory crepes. Don't tell your dad. Zhu Yu sent back a begging emoji. I mercifully removed one item. It wasn't that the nanny at home couldn't make them, but they just didn't taste as good as the ones from outside. When Zhu Yu came in, I was grooming Snow White. The big white cat was meowing and acting cute, wanting a fish treat. When it saw that wasn't working on me, it immediately went to rub against the newly arrived Zhu Yu. Zhu Yu handed the snacks to the nanny and picked up Snow White, weighing her in his arms. Then he introduced me to the nervous-looking teenager behind him. Zhu Yu said this was his desk mate Su Hui. Oh, Su Hui. I nodded. Wait, which Hui? Auntie, it's the Hui from Win on. Holy crap, isn't this the male protagonist? My dear son, why did you bring the male protagonist home? I later learned that Su Hui was a scholarship student at their school. In his first month, he had knocked Zhu Yu off the top spot in their grade. The two had been competing academically ever since. He brought Su Hui home today to scout the enemy, but later at the dinner table he found out that Su Hui's grandmother was seriously ill and Su Hui planned to drop out after one more semester to work. Zhu's compassionate side was stirred. He told me he wanted to sponsor Su Hui after graduation. He can work at Zhu Corporation to pay off the debt. Me, the great villain, recruits the male protagonist and makes him his subordinate. From then on, the future tycoon of the world would have to work like a horse for the Zhu family company after graduation. Is this right? But looking at Zhu's expectant eyes and remembering Su Hui's difficult situation, I couldn't bring myself to object. Forget it, I just need to be a good wicked stepmother. Other people's fates are not my concern, so I said fine, the sponsorship money will be deducted from your allowance. Zhu Yu. Soon it was time for Zhu's college entrance exams. As the wicked stepmother, I also faced my final test to secretly change Zhu's college application choices. The system said it could turn a blind eye to all my previous cheating except for this time. If you do not act according to your persona, you will die immediately. I thought of the lab report I had received a few days ago and had no choice but to open the computer. Zhu's password was easy to guess. It was mine and Zhu Qingli's birthdays. I asked the system if there was a specific major mentioned in the original novel. The system said no, but I had to change Zhu's choices to something completely different. Basically, if he applied for English, I had to change it to math. I couldn't be bothered to laugh at the system's lack of common sense. Looking at Zhu's nonsensical application choices, I decisively changed them all to top-tier universities. Sigh. After being a stepmother for so many years, I was finally being truly wicked for once. Zhu Yu had no idea that I had changed his application choices, perhaps because the exams were over he had more free time. Not only did he fuss over me every day, but he also started managing me on his father's behalf. You can't drink watermelon juice, it's too cold. The nanny just mopped the floor. Wait a bit before you go over there. I'm taking Snow White to my room for now. You shouldn't hold him so much lately. I suspected he knew something, you rebellious son. I'm telling your dad. Zhu Yu stood up straight. Dad told me to do this before he left on his business trip. Also, since I'm not in school right now, I can't bring you snacks anymore. Me, this brat, having done something wrong. I felt a little guilty, but also a little sad. This was probably the last of Zhu's concern for me before the acceptance letters arrived. On the day the results were released, Zhu Qingli rushed back. Overnight, our family nervously gathered around the computer. I was especially tense because of my guilt. Zhu Qingli looked helplessly at his hand, which I had squeezed until it changed color. Yuan, this is not a prosthetic. I sheepishly let go. In the end, we couldn't find Zhu Yes results on the computer. His results were announced a few days later. The teacher personally notified us he had beaten Su Hui by 2 points to become the city's top science student. At the same time, he found out that I had changed his application choices. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. I turned my head away, not knowing how to explain. He ate his meals mixed with tears and was so angry he didn't speak to me for days. On the day Zhu Yu returned to school as the outstanding graduate to give a speech, the school specially invited me. I thought about it and decided to go. Given Zhu Yes' personality, he would probably expose my true colors on stage. But I had done something wrong, so it was only right to be punished and criticized. I sat in the front row looking at the radiant young man under the spotlight. I blinked my stinging eyes, waiting to face my judgment. But the first thing Zhu Yu said in his speech was, the person I'm most grateful grateful for is my mother. Her love guided me as I grew, and she pointed me toward my path in life from a young age. She cultivated my independence, teaching me to do things for myself. The stories she told me were full of creativity, teaching me to think outside the box. She had me actively participate in daily chores, fostering a sense of ownership in our family. She urged me to take good care of my pet, teaching me what responsibility is. Through her actions, she taught me the spirit of being unpredictable and never giving up. Zuyu went on and on, praising me to the skies. It didn't sound like an outstanding graduate speech, but more like an award ceremony for me. As soon as the speech ended, countless parents swarmed over to ask for my parenting tips. I was escorted out of the auditorium by the father and son, completely bewildered. I later found out that Zuyu had never been angry with me. He had deliberately filled in his application choices randomly. He wanted to fulfill my destiny in his own way. Unexpectedly, I had inadvertently set things back on the right track. But Zuyu's reason for changing his choices was so ridiculous, I immediately punished him and his dad by making them weed the garden in the midday sun. Hopefully it would dry out the water in their brains. Zhu Qingli, why do I have to be punished too? A son's misdeeds are the father's fault. Zhu Qingli, Zuyu, he just then I suddenly heard the countdown for the system's departure. System, thank you for helping me cover things up all this time. System, thank you too. For what? For saving the kitten. I wish you all the best in the future. Goodbye. I was a little stunned until Zuyu and Zhu Qingli, wiping the sweat from their foreheads, waved at me. The sun was shining brightly outside the window. I touched my increasingly round belly. All the strange twists of fate, they were just perfect. Epilogue. Zuyu, when Zuyu was little, the nanny would take him for walks. He noticed that everyone had a mother except him. At first he thought the nanny was his mother, but when he called her that, the nanny denied it with a look of horror. He was very hurt. So he told Zhu Qingli about it. Zhu Qingli was silent for a long time, then stroked his little head. Not long after, he got a mother. This mother was very nice to him at first, and he was happy every day. But gradually this mother changed. She started to deliberately starve him and dress him in shabby clothes. The kids at kindergarten bullied him. He tearfully told her, hoping she would protect him. But she said coldly, why don't they bully others, only you? Is there something wrong with you? After this happened many times, little Zuyu didn't dare to complain anymore. His personality became more and more withdrawn. Zhu Qingli was busy with work and rarely came home, but he would call to ask if he was doing well. Zuyu didn't dare to say he wasn't because the bad mother would pinch his thigh. She would fawningly tell Zhu Qingli, Mr. Zhu, I'm here at home. You don't have to worry about a thing. Later Zuyu learned that this mother was not his biological mother, which was why she was so mean to him. One night Zuyu was leaning on the windowsill looking at the stars. Suddenly a streak of light shot across the sky. He had heard the nanny say that this was a shooting star, and you could make a wish on it. He immediately closed his eyes. Shooting star, oh shooting star, if you can hear my wish, can you please bring my real mother back to me? The next day Zuyu waited with great anticipation, but she didn't appear. The third day, the fourth day, until Zuyu himself had lost all hope. One day, it was the third time he had a nosebleed at kindergarten. The teacher said he was too hyper and that his parents could prepare some bitter melon juice for him to cool down. Zuyu pursed his lips, not knowing who to tell. His father was thousands of miles away. His bad mother wished he were dead. He sadly started to cry. A strange emotion surged within him. He could barely control it. Then the next morning, after the only milk he was allowed to drink was taken away, he finally couldn't help but glare fiercely at his bad mother. The bad mother was stunned, and then he was given a glass of bitter melon juice. From that day on, he found that his bad mother had changed. She would buy him new clothes. She would tell him strange stories. She would playfully call him little codfish. She would even kiss him and help him chase away the brats who bullied him. This mother was too good. Zuyu absolutely adored her. He used to think he was the most miserable child in the world, but now he had his own mother. He was the happiest child in the world. He lived these happy days for 13 years until high school, when he inadvertently learned that he was not his parents' biological child. His father Zhu Qingli was actually his uncle. His parents had died in an accident, and his carefree uncle was forced to take on a responsibility that was not originally his. Just at this time he learned that his mother was pregnant. His wicked stepmother. His uncle said he would inherit the family business when he came of age. But shouldn't all of this belong to his mother's biological child? If his mother found out, would she hate him? The angsty teenager, burdened with this secret, resolutely filled in his university application choices randomly. He wanted to return everything in his own way. Later, when his mom found out the reason, she looked at him as if he were an idiot. She stared until his face turned red. His mom told him to stop with these useless gestures. If he really wanted to repay her, he could just help take care of his little sister more. He cooed at his baby sister, who was only a few months old, in his arms. He looked at Snow White, who was rubbing against his leg.